We've seen blind people seeing, deaf people hearing, not once, not twice.
Really?
We've seen people with strokes for 10 years lift their arms up again. We've seen people step out of wheelchairs. The body literally recalibrates to a new mind.
So let's start by talking about how you first became sort of interested in this whole idea of spontaneous remissions, which for those who don't know what it is, means that you have some incurable disease and it goes away. And it's not because you got a medical treatment, it's because something happened that shifted the course of the disease that was most likely coming from your own consciousness. So talk about how you got into that and why you started to study it.
Well, I think, first of all, thank you again. I think for the most part, I've always been a curious person, and I'm always interested in human potential. And, at one point, we all read really cool information about mystics and saints and avatars. And for me, that's all good philosophy until you have your own moment. And, I was in a triathlon and I got run over by a truck and I broke 6 vertebrae in my spine. And I had to make a decision at that time in my life because the diagnosis wasn't very good and neither was the prognosis. And I had to decide if I was going to spend the rest of my life on addictive medications and with surgical rods in my spine, or if I was going to see if the mind could actually heal the body. And so that was my wake-up call in 1986. And so I just, I was at the point where I just had to make a decision to see if it was actually the truth. If all of this that I learned was the truth, let's apply it. And so I was lucky enough to have a dramatic change in my own personal health. And then I thought, God, yeah, if it worked on me, has it worked on other people? So I started looking into people that had, been treating conventionally or non-conventionally and with a certain diagnosis, and their condition was staying the same, getting worse, and all of a sudden it got better. And I just wanted to look at what the cause was that was producing that effect. And so I interviewed, hundreds and hundreds of people that had gone through the process. And one of the most fundamental elements that they all had in common was there were a lot of things that had to do with their mind. And some people had specific diets and specific regimes. Some people used certain, conventional and non-conventional protocols. But the commonality primarily was about how the mind was really influencing the body. And they began to really take a closer look at how they were thinking on a daily basis, how they were acting on a regular basis, and looking at how they feel on a moment-to-moment basis. And how you think and how you act and how you feel is your personality. And your personality has a very direct relationship with your personal reality, which means if you want to change your personal reality, if you want to change something about your life, you got to change. And so the process of change then becomes the fundamental process of going from some person that's familiar and known to you and stepping out and beginning to make different choices and to begin thinking differently and begin to behave differently and speak differently and feel differently. And if you start thinking, acting, and feeling differently, our research shows without a doubt, you're going to have dramatic changes in your biology. And if you do it enough times, you're going to become someone else. And the disease then all of a sudden exists in the old personality and not in the new personality. And you ask the person, where's the cancer? Where's the rheumatoid arthritis? Where's the immune-mediated condition? It's in the old person. I'm not that person any longer. And so when we started seeing these changes taking place in people that had their own personal remissions, I thought, well, is that teachable? And what is the science behind teaching it? Can we teach people how to begin to change their thoughts? And is there neuroscience to support it? And there's tons. And if you begin to behave differently, can you create neural pathways that begin to become habituated over time? And if you stop feeling suffering and you stop feeling pain, and you stop feeling guilt, and you start feeling elevated emotions like joy or inspiration or gratitude, not just in a momentary state like positive thinking, but to be able to self-regulate and maintain that, we could teach that. Could we produce the same effects in people? So I think this is a time in history, Mark, where it's not enough to know. It's a time in history to know how. So all that philosophy is all great dinner conversation, but when you're given a diagnosis, now you got to step out of the bleachers and you got to get on the playing field and you got to start making different choices. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, Whether you like it or not, you're going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. You're not going to be able to predict what's going to happen. There's going to be some uncertainty because you're leaving the known familiar self. And so how does the person become the person they are? And why do they keep their health condition the same? And well, most people, your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. So most people wake up in the morning. If you think that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, they start thinking about their problems. And those problems are just memories that are etched in their brain that are connected to certain people and objects and certain things at certain times and places. And the moment they start thinking about their problems, they're thinking in the past. Now, because every one of those problems has an emotion associated with them, the moment they start feeling unhappy or feeling sad, now their body's in the past, because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, and how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. Now, the problem is that the person thinks of the problem, feels the emotion, and that is a thought and feeling. That's an image and an emotion. It's a stimulus and response, and that starts the conditioning process to get the body emotionally conditioned into the past. Now, here's the crazy part about that. The familiar past emotionally is producing dramatic effects on the body because the body is so objective that it does not know the difference between the real life experience that's creating that emotion and the emotion that person is fabricating by thought or memory alone. The body's believing it's living in the same past experience 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And the problem with that is that the environment signals the gene. That's epigenetics. And the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion. So the person is keeping the same gene regulated because the body's believing it's living in the same environmental conditions. So getting that person to step outside of that familiar known territory into the unknown, where there is uncertainty, and have them be comfortable there and begin to think about how they are going to think. And
you're telling people to give up their identity of who they are, what defines them, their past, their stories, their beliefs. You're coming after it. You're going for the jugular in our old patterns and our old ways of being that keep us not well and keep us unhappy and sick.
Turns out that's 95% of who we are. So if we don't address those unconscious programs, you can, and you're an integrated physician, you understand this, that you could have the healthiest, ketogenic, vegan, intermittent fasting, enzymes, food combining. And if you're living in fear, if you're living in pain, the cell is not in a state to actually absorb anything. It's in a state of emergency. And in emergency, there's no growth and repair. So
I've seen patients like that who do everything perfectly and they're like still sick. And I've seen people who like don't give a crap about their health, but they have the best attitude and they're fine.
Because the body's believing it's in a different environment, and growth and repair is what does it. So then we said, okay, let's see if we can demystify the process. So the concept, the word meditation, literally means to become familiar with. If you look at the symbolism of it and you look it up, it's familiarization. So you sit down and you say, okay, I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to talk trash about people. I don't want to complain. I want to blame. I don't want to make excuses. I don't want to feel lack. I don't want to have an attitude that's telling me I can. It's too hard. That's the old identity, right? So the moment you start becoming conscious of those unconscious thoughts, the moment you become aware of your automatic habits and behaviors, the moment you can notice that this is actually guilt that you're feeling or sadness or pain, the moment you can become conscious and familiar with those states of mind and body, if you keep becoming familiar with it, if you keep becoming conscious of it, you won't go unconscious. So sitting in a meditation to know thyself, most people all of a sudden, here comes the barrage of thoughts. Here comes the propensities and habits, and here comes the emotions. The body's saying, you normally complain at this time. What are you doing sitting with your eyes closed? Let's think of a reason why you can complain. And the body starts influencing the mind. So if you break it down to for a person to understand, how many times do we have to forget until we start remembering and keep remembering and stop forgetting? That's the process of change. So then you put a person in a meditation and they hear that voice, they hear that chatter, they want to get up and go to the bathroom, they want to check their cell phone, they want to feel angry. And instead of getting up and saying, I can't meditate, see, they're coming to the end of the known. So they want to go back to what's known, right? If you teach the person what to do, and you show them that on the other side of that is freedom, on the other side of that is joy, you got to become so conscious, and it takes a lot of awareness, it takes a lot of energy to sit with yourself long enough to disentangle from those programs. Now, we now know that it's a formula, that if you follow a formula, you will actually start pruning circuitry. You'll stop the conditioning process and move the body out of the past, and it starts liberating energy. And that's energy to heal with. That's energy to create a new life. That's energy to digest again. The body's no longer living in survival or living in emergency. And the majority of people's emotions then tend to be derived from the hormones of stress. And so that we started realizing that the arousal of the stress hormones, the rush of the chemistry, is actually tapping the body's resources. And the stronger the emotions we feel towards any problem or person in our life, the more we pay attention to them. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, then you're giving your power away to that person or problem. And if a person can learn to sit in the fire and say, it's not my boss, it's not my ex, it's not my job, it's not the pandemic, it's me. That this emotion isn't serving me because this emotion is the exact emotion that's pushing the genetic buttons that's creating disease. Okay, if I can keep practicing lowering the volume to that emotion, I'll keep taking my attention off that person or problem. And in a sense, the body starts moving back where? Into the present moment. It starts getting relaxed in the unknown. So we started teaching people the process, and by a person overcoming their past, not the trauma, just the emotion. They just have to work on breaking that conditioning process, because if you keep doing it over and over again, a habit is when the body becomes the mind. Now the servant, now the body's influencing the mind. So you teach a person then how to break that conditioning process. The body starts moving into the present moment. It's no longer in the same environmental condition. And then all of a sudden, we start to see some pretty dramatic changes in people's health.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. What you're talking about is helping people understand that the voice in their head is not them.
It's a program.
Who is it that's actually aware that you have a voice in your head?
That's the person we're after.
They call that witness consciousness, or non-judgmental awareness, or whatever they call it. Mindfulness.
Yes.
And honestly, Joe, it's scary in there. Your lower self has literally hijacked the road trip. And for me, I'm constantly in relationship to my lower self, trying to see what it's saying, trying to shift the dialogue and flip it so that I'm not constantly repeating these same negative thought patterns that are causing me unhappiness or suffering or disease or pain or whatever it is. And, I've been working on this for a long time, and I don't find it easy. I find it challenging. It's like, it's 4 a.m. My mind just kicks up about, my ex-wife, or and I'm like pretty chill most of the time. I'm like, God, it's so deep in this wiring and programming. And your work really helps people with a methodology to deal with that. Right. And what happens in the work that you've done is so tremendous, is that not only do you see the changes in people's lives, but you're seeing changes in their biology, which speak to the underlying physiology of joy, happiness, freedom, right? That's a very new thing. You're familiar, I'm sure, with my friend Daniel Goleman and his partner, Rich Davidson, who wrote Altered Traits, about studying these Olympic meditators who've been in caves for 9 years, meditating all the time, and their brains look totally different. And you're seeing this not in 9 years of being in a cave, but after 7 days, right?
Yeah. God, if you were to ask me, Mark, a year ago or 2 years ago, if I would think in my lifetime that I would be seeing what we're seeing in our measurements, I'd probably say, wow, probably not, but it's pretty ambitious, because sometimes we see such levels of order in our community's brains when they apply that formula, that we just found the articles that said that the mathematical probability of this type of coherence happening in the brain is statistically impossible. And if it occurred, it would occur as a momentary phenomenon that's random. And so our collective groups of people are sustaining these states for extended periods of time. So we can see dramatic changes in people's brain circuitry, but not only their circuitry, but this thing called coherence. And coherence is order, it's rhythm. So the antithesis is if you're living in stress and you're living in survival, you feel like you can't control something, you feel like you can't predict something, and you have the perception that something's getting worse. And the arousal of those stress hormones causes you to shift your attention from one person to another problem, to another thing, to another place. And every one of those elements has a neurological network in the brain. So the arousal in the brain is saying there's an emergency, try to control everything, try to predict everything, prepare for the worst. And you start firing all these circuits and individually. You shift your attention to your boss, to your coworkers, or whatever, and you start causing the brain to fire very incoherently. And when the brain is incoherent, we're incoherent. And when the brain isn't working right, we're not working right. So then the arousal causes us to narrow our focus on the material world as our senses become heightened, and we focus on everything that's physical and material, and we start over-focusing. That's what stress does. So we thought, what if we taught people to do the opposite? Instead of narrowing their focus on whatever is material or known to them, let's have them open their focus and broaden their focus and put their attention on nothing physical and put it on nothing, on space, on energy.
Yeah.
And if we can create what's called a divergent focus, is it possible that the brain would begin to fire more coherently? And all of a sudden, we started seeing the front of the brain, talking the back of the brain, and synchronizing areas together, and what syncs in the brain links in the brain. And all of a sudden, you see the person starting to feel more whole. You keep doing that, more coherence creates more energy. The waves start standing, and they start building on each other. And when that happens, there's an arousal that ultimately takes place in the brain, but the arousal is not fear. The arousal is not pain or aggression, and the arousal is not is anger. The arousal is ecstasy. The arousal is bliss. The arousal is love.
That sounds pretty good.
And the person,
where do I sign up?
well, here's the cool part about it is that when that occurs, the stimulation that's being created, and we see these high gamma patterns that are off the scale. The arousal that's taking place is not taking place from anything out there in the environment. It's not taking place from the sports car, or the wardrobe, or the movie, or the cell phone. It's happening inside the person. And all of a sudden, that's a new feeling. They've never had that feeling before, and they start feeling connected. The side effect of that is even greater levels of order in the brain, and all of a sudden, the heart gets very turned on. It gets very signaled, and the person is moving into an elevated state. And that kind of combination of energy between the heart and the brain causes the person to become creative, not a little creative, but really seeing possibilities. They're conscious of things they were never conscious before. And that's a greater level of awareness, and that's a greater level of energy. And so people all of a sudden start seeing synchronicities that start taking place in their life because they have a coherent brain and a coherent heart, and you got a Wi-Fi signal, and you feel connected to something. You don't feel separate. Stress causes us to feel separation. And lack. And this feeling makes you feel whole. And all of a sudden, all the things that you wanted because you were in lack, you no longer want because you feel like you have them. And that's the kind of place where you can relax more into the present moment and enjoy the sunset and enjoy the meal and enjoy the conversation and enjoy the connection because you're present. And I say that that's a skill. So the biological...
It is really. And our whole society is geared to make us not present. I mean, the phones that we have are just these distraction animals. I think it's hard for us to come back to ourselves. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have computers, we didn't have anything except postcards and a landline. And I remember the quality of my experience was quite different, and the quality of my inner joy was much higher. And I'm sort of inspired by what you're saying, and I decided actually last week that I'm going to go for a month into a cabin somewhere where I'm going to have food delivered, not see another human, and go into a retreat and meditate and have no phone, no computer, no books, I'm not even going to take your books, Joe. I'm going to take a pen and paper so I can write, but that's it. And it'll just be an interesting experiment to see what it feels like to just be with no distraction and to let all that settle and begin to get into the space of coherence. Because, I've noticed that for myself, and I'm sure like everybody else, that, the mind is a hard monkey to tame. And it takes us down pathways of beliefs and ideas and things that take us away from a vibrant, full, joyous, happy life. And what's great about your work is it's not just theoretical. And yes, you've got all the science behind it, and you're really mapping out the changes that structurally happen, in our bodies. But you talk about these 4 elements of healing your body with your mind, and how we can rewire our brain by changing our thoughts. I mean, so it sort of implies that we have the capacity to master our thoughts, which a lot of us don't think we do. But can you take us through what those 4?
Well, first of all, I want to respond to that because
okay.
because a lot of people don't know what to do.
Yes.
When they have that thought, they have no formula that's scientific and practical, that if they can practice enough times, if nerve cells that fire together wire together, then nerve cells that no longer fire together no longer wire together. And if you stick with it, and we can tell you this, that sooner or later, that thought is going to start to have a weakening effect on your mind until ultimately it's no longer going to be there because you no longer paid attention to it, no longer accepted it, no longer believed it, no longer surrendered to it. And most people, when they get to this point, Mark, they think, I'm doing my meditation wrong. And I always tell them, no. You're actually doing it right. That's what I want you to see. That's standing in the way between you and your happiness. On the other side of that is a whole new area that you get to wire your brain any way you choose. So then there's an unlearning process before the relearning process. There's a breaking a habit of the old self and a reinvention of a new self. You got to prune synaptic connections, and then you got to practice sprouting new ones. You got to unfire and unwire. You got to refire and rewire. You got to deprogram and reprogram. You got to lose your mind and create a new one. And you have to unmemorize emotions that keep you connected to the same familiar past, and then recondition the body to a new mind and to a new emotion. So then that process, if there's a formula to apply, let's just say, you sitting in your meditation, it means
because it sounds good, right? But how do you get from here to there? I'm sure everybody's thinking who's listening.
Yeah, of course. No, but everybody's done it. They've done it. They just haven't made it a habit. And so then if you're sitting in a meditation and you have something to do and your body starts going, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and it's my ex-wife, it's my whatever, and you go like this to your body. Okay, now listen, you settle down and you know exactly what to do, and you tame the animal, you tell it to settle, stay, and you relax it back into the present moment. What I want you to know,
down, boy.
Sit. That's a victory. That's a victory. Yeah. And then if the body starts going, I got to get up, I got to check my cell phone, I got to go, I got a meeting, I'm busy. And you notice that your body's habituated into the same predictable future, and you settle your body back down into the present moment. Now you're executing a will that's greater than those unconscious programs, and that's a victory. And if you keep doing this over and over again, just like training an animal, the body's going to stay. It's going to surrender to a new mind. And when that occurs, there's a liberation of energy, and the person relaxes into the present moment. That's the unknown. The familiar past is the known. The predictable future is the known. The only one place left is the sweet spot of that generous present moment. Now let's get the person so familiar with their unconscious thoughts that when it comes, they don't respond to them. So aware of their habits and behaviors. So conscious of the emotions that they typically feel in a waking day. They would never go unconscious to that emotion again. And you say to the person, hey, Mark, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? And with intention and attention, if we showed you how to do that, nerve cells that fire together, wire together. Just take a little repetition, a little presence. You start installing the hardware. Keep doing it. It's going to become a software program. What does that mean? That's going to be the new voice in your head that says, Mark, you can do it. If you said, okay,
So I can teach my inner voice to speak a different language.
Exactly. You can change.
That sounds good.
You can change its mind. But then
I think I want to
said,
talk Portuguese because I think it's a nice sounding language.
But if you then said,
very sexy language. I think Portuguese is very sexy.
But if you said then, okay, how am I going to be with my coworkers? How am I going to be with my employees? How am I going to be with my ex-wife? What would greatness look like today? And you sat down and closed your eyes and you rehearsed in your mind how you were going to be in every one of those situations. If you study the research in neuroscience, mental rehearsal installs neurological hardware in your brain to look like you already did it.
Yeah, that's when I think about my serve before I serve, and I do it better.
Of course, because you produce that mind. So if you keep doing that, you install hardware, practice it and rehearse it. It becomes a software program, which means you start behaving that way. Now, here's the challenging part. Can you teach your body emotionally what the future reality that you want to live in feels like before it happens? Now, this is very difficult if you've been conditioned into believing something in your outer world has to change to take away the emptiness or the lack, to make you feel differently. This is saying actually feel the emotion before it happens and don't wait for the experience to occur. Teach your body what the feeling will be before it occurs. If the environment signals the gene and the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion, you're signaling the gene ahead of the environment, and genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and function of your body, and the expression of proteins is the expression of life. So teach the body emotionally to self-regulate, to believe it's living in an environment that's flourishing, that's wonderful. Keep practicing it, and it'll become familiar to you. And the process then creates a new identity, and it's not difficult once you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And the more you combine all those different branches of science and make it in a simple way to understand, if people understand the what and the why, the how gets easier because you can assign meaning to what you're doing and it becomes instrumental. So get a group of people, 1,000 people, 1,500 people, 2,000 people into a room, teach them that information, whether they're coming for wealth or health, a relationship, a new career, a mystical experience. Get them all together and teach them and measure what can take place in a 1 week period of time. And I assure you, that's more than 75% of the people that go through and go all in and retreat from their lives and remove the same stimulation from their environment and not be in the same conditions, and teach them that information and give them numerous opportunities to apply it and numerous opportunities to get beyond themselves. All you need is that first person that stands on the stage and says, hey, I walked in here with Parkinson's disease. I have no idea what happened, but I'm not trembling anymore. And boy, that last thing, just something clicked for me. And the person in the audience was watching the 4-minute mile right in front of them and going, wow, that guy looks like he's not a vegan. He doesn't look like he's particularly in shape, but his Parkinson's went away. And wow, I mean, if he could do it, I could do it. And somebody else changes their belief. And now that's a footprint in consciousness. Get enough people doing that. By the end of the week, you're going to see things. We've seen blind people seeing, deaf people hearing, not once, not twice.
Really?
We've seen people with strokes for 10 years lift their arms up again. We've seen people step out of wheelchairs, people on crutches drop their crutches. I mean, you see the body literally recalibrates to a new mind. And they're not intentionally trying to do anything. They're just becoming somebody else. But the process of overcoming is the process of becoming. And if you teach people that formula and you get just 1 or 2 people doing it, it's just going to become an infection, and it's going to wellness and it's going to spread just like disease.
That's good. Yeah. I think health is contagious, actually. So Joe, a lot of people listening are going, yeah, this all makes sense. And I'm certainly having these thoughts, but taming the mind is hard. And a lot of us feel things and have really strong emotions. And we think that they have a existence of their own. But it's really the thoughts that create emotions, right? It's thoughts that create the feelings, because we have a belief, we have a perspective, or we have a narrative, and it can happen in a nanosecond, right? It can happen in a nanosecond, but is that how it works?
Well, as you said at the beginning of the show, There's never a time where your body isn't influencing your mind, and there's never a time where your mind isn't influencing your body. You have a body in your mind and a mind mapped in your brain, and it's the same. So a person then who's become so happy being unhappy that familiar feeling in them is something that they enjoy feeling, because they don't know who they would be if they didn't feel that feeling. Okay,
see that a lot, yeah.
Okay, let's
a lot
just
of sick people. You see that without their illness or is their identity, and without it, they don't know who they are.
And why? Why? Because the suffering, and I'm not saying this is for everybody. That person gets attention from it, gets people to visit, gets whatever they need. But in a sense, they also have relationships where they love to share the same emotions. And if you share the same experiences, you share the same emotions. So, Mark, let's get on the phone and let's complain for the next 30 minutes about how miserable life is. And then I'll try to top you and you try to top me. And we're using each other to reaffirm some type of conditioning, right? So that becomes the identity. So then let's just say you decide to stop blaming, stop complaining, stop making excuses, stop feeling sorry for yourself, stop talking trash, stop commiserating. You just say, I'm going to quit that. In the first hour, you do really well. But the problem is the body's saying, hey, Mark, this is where you normally
complained in an hour.
Yeah, this is not where you call Joe and you start commiserating. So what does the body say? The body starts influencing the mind, and it starts calling up circuits in the brain that are connected to that emotion that you've been using all along. So then you start thinking about all the reasons you're unhappy. Now that thought leads to a choice. That choice leads to the same behavior. The same behavior creates the same experience, and the same experience produces the same feeling and the same emotion, and that same emotion starts to influence the very same thought. And now the person returns back to their same biology, and the health condition will always be there because it's the environment that looks like it's signaling the gene. But it's the emotion. So then if the person all of a sudden says, okay, I'm going to do my meditation, and you do your meditation at 11 o'clock in the morning. And that's normally when you get on your emails and start judging people. Your body's going to say you're out of schedule. So the process of change requires then not only addressing the mind, which is the thought, but also the emotion that's conditioned into the body. And if you break it down for people, they'll be able to distinguish in the process of change. Oh my God. Like I'm fasting from a breaking an addiction. You know, your body's craving. I just got to suffer a little bit with somebody, and it wants to suffer, and you got to be able to work with it, and not just to sit there and white knuckle it. To learn how to self-regulate, to learn how to make those changes with your eyes open. That's when it matters the most. You practice meditation with your eyes closed. You take your body out for a test drive during the day with your eyes open, and you work on staying conscious, right?
I mean, right. The purpose of meditation is to get better at meditation, is to get better at life, right?
Exactly. Becoming more conscious. Exactly.
Yeah. And so those four elements that you talked about a little bit.
So it's really simple. So the first thing is that people have this very strong belief that there was some innate intelligence within them that was giving them life. There's some energy, some force of life that made them more vitalistic and less mechanistic. Whether it was spiritual, whatever they wanted to call it, that there was some power within them that they acknowledged that was giving them life. The second thing was they realized it was their own mismanagement of their thoughts and their actions and their emotions that created their health condition. They realized, I actually had a strong part in this, and they started taking responsibility. Wow. And really they decided, I got to break the habit of being myself. Now, they really said, if I'm going to live the next part of my life with this health condition, I don't want to live like that person any longer. If I only have 6 months to live, I don't want to live that way. So they started becoming conscious of their unconscious self, and so conscious that they didn't want to go unconscious. And then they started thinking, number 3, if I actually had a new lease on life, if I actually could heal, if I actually could live another year, how would I live my life? Now, they didn't say I'm going to be the same person. They said, how do I want to think? How do I want to act? How do I want to feel? And exactly how I described, they went into an inward process, not even a meditation, just what do I want to tell myself? And let me repeat it. How do I want to live with my family? How do I want to eat dinner? What emotions do I want to feel? And they started changing their personality. They started reinventing a new self. And then the last thing that they had in common is that they started noticing when they would close their eyes and do this, they lost track of space and time. That they thought it was like 15 minutes that went by or 20 minutes that went by. And in actuality, it was an hour and 20 minutes that went by. They had no sense of space and time in their inner process. And I was interested in demystifying the process because I wanted to see if we could teach that that process that worked with sick people on other people, and it worked.
So you're taking these ancient spiritual traditions and meditation and spiritual practices, and you put a lot of structure and science behind it to help the average Westerner who's not familiar with those practices to actually access it, which is really an extraordinary gift. And I'd love to sort of have you talk about some of the practical things that people can do, like gratitude. You talk about how there's 1,200 chemicals released in the body from the practice of gratitude.
Yeah.
And again, you know, I'd be scared to know how many molecules come out with the practice of stress and complaining. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know that. But I want you to talk about the gratitude, the biology of gratitude.
Yeah. So I studied this extensively because we actually we did an experiment. We took a group of people that came to our event, and we did all kinds of brain measurements on them, and then we put heart rate variability devices on them, and we asked them to trade emotions like fear or anger or resentment or impatience or frustration, and stop feeling those feelings, and just for a few times a day to feel gratitude. And we would talk them through it just for 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, 2-3 times a day. At the end of 4 days, we were looking to measure if there were any significant changes in their immune regulation. And we found out that the body started producing 50% more of a chemical called IgA, immunoglobulin A, the body's natural antiviral, antibacterial, natural flu shot.
Yeah.
And so when you are receiving something favorable, or you just receive something enjoyable, if something wonderful just happened to you, or something really amazing is happening to you, you feel grateful. So the emotional signature of gratitude is something amazing is happening to you, or it just happened to you, right? So It's the ultimate state of receiving emotionally. So if you can teach a person to truly practice gratitude, there'll be significant changes in the way their heart thumps, the way it beats, and what it starts to do to the brain. We've studied this thousands of times. So when you start feeling grateful, your heart starts beating in a rhythm that begins to influence or inform the brain that it's safe to create. It's believing in that moment that it's safe to be out of survival. And practice that enough times, the body starts to regenerate. So we saw changes in immune regulation. We saw changes in gene expression. Why? Because the body's believing it's living in an environment where the person's dreams have already happened. Now, we only accept, believe, and surrender to thoughts that are equal to our emotional state. We never accept, believe, and surrender to thoughts that are not equal to our emotional state. And this is why affirmations don't work. You could say, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. And your body's going, no, you're not. You're miserable. So the thought never makes it past the brainstem to the body. Teach a person to change from fear and break that conditioning and practice with enough times creating the same feeling of gratitude as automatically as they did with fear. It makes sense then that in a very short amount of time, you can see very significant changes in how the body regulates and how it functions. And the heart then starts to beat in this beautiful, beautiful coherent state. And so we started looking to see if teaching people how to do that and sustaining it, if it made significant changes. And without a doubt, when we accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts that are equal to the emotional state of gratitude, that information programs the autonomic nervous system into a different destiny. Yeah. So then teach a person how to be in a state of receivership and gratitude. They can program their brain and body a lot quicker than when they're feeling fear and anger, because you get the diagnosis. The moment you get the diagnosis, you notice a change in your internal state. You're changed.
Yeah.
And when you notice that change in your internal state, the brain freezes a frame and takes a snapshot, and that's called a long-term memory. So the doctor says, you have 6 months to live, you have this condition, this is what happened, and all that information is going in because it's equal to the emotion of fear. So you got to get the person out of that state, because that's a state of survival, and you're losing energy in the body. And in gratitude, you're regenerating energy. So get the person to a state of gratitude, and then teach them how to program their brain and body. Then you start seeing changes in their autonomic nervous system.
Yeah. Seems like the biggest pharmacy is between our ears, right?
Exactly.
And that you're teaching people how to access that. The challenge I see for people, and I'm thinking about this very selfishly and personally, is, okay, I meditate, but is that enough? If I meditate 20 minutes twice a day and I do sort of a mantra meditation, I still have this relationship to my thoughts that I struggle with. So are there other practices that you teach that help people to really break that pattern? Because it's not just about sitting. There's something else that has to happen as well.
Sure,
right?
sure. And well, first of all, absolutely. Meditation is not just to meditate and then get up and return back to the same person, flipping people off on the freeway and judging your partner. That's going back to the old self. Meditation is to prime the brain and body into a new state of being, right? And then maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. You got to be able to practice it with your eyes open, that no condition, no circumstance in your environment, no person, no thing, no craving in the body, no wrong choice. You got to be able to sustain that state. And if you can, get ready, because there's going to be changes in your outer world. That's the law. So when we started studying people that were healing in this work, that were diagnosed, a lot of them with immune-mediated conditions, Mark.
Like autoimmune diseases and...
Yeah, autoimmune diseases, from cancer to rheumatoid to everything in between. They noticed that when they started doing the meditations, their well-being came back, but their blood values and their markers never changed. And it occurred to them, my God, I have a great meditation, I feel amazing. But then when I get up, I return back to the same worrying person. Now I gotta step it up. I gotta make the changes with my eyes open. And when they started doing it with their eyes open, that's when we started seeing the blood values and everything changing. So in our retreats, you can sit as it and get really good at it, but then there's 4 types of meditation. There's a seated, there's a standing, there's a walking, and there's a laying down. And so if you're going to become that person you want to become, you better be able to practice doing it with your eyes open. So we teach people, 1,000, 1,500 people on a beach or in a park. It's really cool to watch. Everybody get that, open their hearts, get in that elevated state and move into a new state of being. And then let's open our eyes. And now let's practice walking with our eyes open as that person. No different than rehearsing for a play, or rehearsing and becoming that person. And if you do it enough times, and a person understands that if they could really, how would I walk if I could heal my body in an hour? Who am I going to leave behind here, and who am I going to walk as? And a lot of people just hit it. And when they do, you see dramatic changes in their health, because they're actually embodying the energy of their future. So we practice sitting, we practice standing and walking, we practice laying down. We practice it all ways because we want the person to become that very person in 1 week. And if they do, our research shows there's dramatic biological markers that change, not small amounts, like thousands.
What are you seeing?
Wow. Oh my God. We're just everything from methylated DNA to changes in cytokines, the changes in immune markers, to suppression of ATP in cancer cells, to downregulating genes for Alzheimer's. I mean, we just see dramatic changes in people's biology.
And you mentioned gene expression changes too. Can you talk about genes? Because we don't really think about our thoughts changing our genes, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I'd like to simplify it for for the average person, for us regular people. And it's really simple. I mean, your body's a protein producing machine. And muscle cells make muscle proteins. They're called actin and myosin. Skin cells make skin proteins. They're called collagen and elastin. Stomach cells make stomach proteins. They're called enzymes. And every cell in your body except red blood cells makes proteins. And proteins are responsible for structure, holding it together, and function and physiology, how we work. It's messengers, right? But in order for a cell to make a protein, a gene has to be regulated. So they used to say genes create disease. Well, you know this, less than 1% of the people on the planet are born with a genetic health condition. Everything else is lifestyle, it's behavior, it's stress. So then is it possible then that if they say now, well, genes don't create disease, it's the environment that signals the gene that creates disease. Take two identical twins. You watch one age dies at 54. The other one lives to 83. They don't even look like the same person, share the same genome. Well, the environment was signaling the gene expression to make certain proteins, and the person develops a different condition because it's the environment that does that. And here's the problem. But if the environment signals the gene, the outer environment of the cell is the inner environment of the body. And what is that? That's the emotions, or chemical, physical, and emotional balance that we have to maintain. So if a person's just constantly living in fear, and it's even if the environment is wonderful and they're on vacation, and they keep remembering an event or anticipating a future, and they're bringing up the emotion of anxiety and fear, it makes sense then that the person's signaling the gene outside of the outer environment because they're making the emotion in their inner environment, and there's no difference. And so if that happens, the constant effect by the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease. And if you can turn on that stress response just by thinking about your problems, then your thoughts are literally going to make you sick. Yeah. So if your thoughts can make you sick, can your thoughts make you well? And you cannot begin to see changes in a person's health until they stop regulating the same genes the same way, and they start upregulating new genes and downregulating old genes. And if they do that, they start producing different enzymes and different chemicals and different hormones, and their body begins to scale in a different direction.
It's so powerful. This work is so powerful. You want to know my secrets for living a long and happy and healthy life? Well, all you have to do is check out my weekly newsletter, Mark's Picks, where I share my favorite tips for health, longevity, well-being, and lots more. Check it out, and link below. How is it different from other, forms of meditation or practice that people are doing?
Gosh, to be really honest, Mark, I don't even know what anybody else is doing. We're so immersed in the stuff that we're doing. Basically, what I am, I'm a pragmatist. You want to talk about quantum superimposition? To me, if it has no effect on my life, I'm not interested. But if it has if there's a practical application, I'm interested in the practical application. So we look at I was going to say we have over 13,000 brain scans now. We look at real-time brain scans. I'm looking at your brain. In a 1 hour, an hour and 10-minute meditation, at certain moments, I'm watching what you're doing, if you can actually change your brain waves, and if you can sustain those changes, and can you do it again and make it a habit? Can you make it a skill? Can you repeat it enough times that you can do it more automatically? So I'm watching the words. We're watching the words that I'm saying. I'm not studying any tradition, any ancient scriptures. I think that the moment you start talking religion or tradition or scriptures or spirituality, you're going to divide an audience. I think science creates community. And so what we do is we've actually created, when you see a person move into love or gratitude, and you see what that does to the brain in an instant, it informs the brain to be creative. When you see that and you see this dance between the two, you turn around and you look at that person and they got this big smile on their face. They're so in love with the moment. They don't want it to end. They're in and there's very strong biological changes. So we're looking at scans of hearts and brains. We're looking at collective scans of people just to see if we can demystify the process. I don't want I don't want to shut an audience off with a word. I want to create new words that are science-based. So the meditations that we teach all have meaning behind what we're doing, because we've studied the scans and studied the effects, and it has certain intentions of why we're doing it, whether we want to signal new genes, whether we want to create more brain coherence, more heart coherence, we want to create coherence between the brain and the heart. I mean, what is it that we want to do? So we have different meditations, for different intentions, really.
It's so great. And your work is so accessible. And I just would love you to share a little bit about the kinds of offerings you did, because people listening go, wow, this sounds great. And how do I really change my mindset? How do I rewire my brain? How do I, get different neurons to fire together? How do I practice gratitude? How do I begin to shift my emotional states by changing my beliefs? And it's something that we need a hand for. Like, it's hard to do on our own. And your work is just such a beautiful collection of offerings. There's a scientific research, and you can go on your website, drjoedispenza.com, and look for that. But you've got a wonderful new online course, The Formula, which is 12, 30 to 40 minute lessons and 5 meditations and a study guide, and allows people to access this in an easy way. It's affordable and in the comfort of their own home. So can you share a little bit about that course? And then let's talk about some of the other things you're doing, like the live events and other things.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. So again, a lot of times we have a community that, definitely we're very interactive with. And one of the things that people kept saying is, okay, my husband, he's not going to watch the weekend course. He's not going to do the study course. My boss notices that I'm very different, but he's not ready for this. Or my best friend, she's just ended a relationship and she can't stop complaining, and I'm not the right person to tell her. So can you do something that's a little bit simpler and just more easily bite-sizable that people can digest? And so when we started looking at the process of change and transformation, we figured out it was a formula that, just like dancing the salsa or hitting a golf ball or hitting a tennis ball or giving a speech, if you learn the practice of it, it gets easier. So we did this course called The Formula, and it's just become super popular, because basically what we're doing is we're giving you the science and the basic understandings, and then you get five meditations after a few of the courses. You practice one, and then you build on that, and you practice the next one. Then you build on this, and you practice the next one, and you put it together, and the model just keeps expanding. So we wanted to make it something that was easy for people to wrap their mind around, and not too long and not too heady. So we did The Formula and launched it, and
that's great. And people can go to drjoedispenza.com and find it.
Yes, it's on the website.
Okay. And then the other thing I want to have you talk about is Dr. Joe Live, which is your monthly community question and answer, and then share a little bit more about the live events, because I think those are really immersive, intensive, week-long events, and people, I've known people who've gone to those, and I really want to go, and I think they've had real transformational experiences. It's one of those game changers for people.
Dr. Joe Live is just a great thing that we do. It's an international service. We have a community of hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and one of the things is that people have questions, and the questions really are not about theoretical concepts, but more about the practical application. And so every month, the last Thursday of every month, I get on there and I just answer questions, and I talk for a bit, 30 minutes or so, develop a concept, how we develop anxiety, how we develop depression, how to create brain coherence, how not to create heart incoherence. We just pick a topic and break it down for people. So when they sit down and they do the work, they remember, and they can assign meaning to what they're doing. So it's just become super popular. And you don't have to be on the call. You can subscribe, and then they send you the recording, and you can listen to it.
And it's free.
Yeah,
it's free.
No, it's that one is a $10 a month service.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's a pretty good bargain. And how about the live events? Share about what those are like, and then also when you talk about the events, talk about the kinds of experiences people have, the transformations that occur, what happens in there, what to expect.
Sure. We started doing these weekend workshops, and when we did, we started seeing people have some really dramatic health changes. And I thought, okay, let's go from Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. Let's do a 4.5-day event. So we started elongating the events, and started seeing more healings and more changes. And then I thought, God, if we could have people for 7 days, it would be really awesome. And so we started doing these 7-day events. We've done 30 of them now, in fact.
Wow.
And it's probably, for me, the greatest place I want to be. And when we solicit our community and ask them what they think of the week-long event, over 95% say it's the best week of their life. It's just really transformative in a lot of ways. And it's, it's an opportunity for people to retreat from their lives for just a whole entire week and remove the constant stimulation in their external environment that reminds them of who they think they are, to separate themselves from all the people and places and things, and learn vital information, and then learn the science of how to change and learn the science of how to create a new life, and give people lots of opportunities. They're long days, they're full, and it's super transformative and fun. And we do a lot of scientific measurements there, of course. But you'll witness some of the most incredible miracles in a 1 week period of time. We just had a guy that was a veteran, a Green Beret, that had a lot of physical injuries and accidents, and had PTSD, had brain injuries. He had broken lots of parts of his body, and was pretty much suicidal at this point. And he went and had 2 knee replacements. And when he came out of the surgery, he said he felt like his feet were on fire. And after a couple of months, he asked the doctors to cut his feet off because he couldn't handle the pain. And they said, we can't guarantee that
the pain will go away.
Pain will go away because of phantom pain. So anyway, he came to the event, salt of the earth, ex-military guy, just wide open, doesn't know anything, just tell me what to do, perfect person. And he came in a wheelchair. His wife wheeled him in a wheelchair. And somewhere around the 3rd or 4th day, when we did our first laying down meditation, something really profound happened. He had one of those arousals, and he felt it move right through his autonomic nervous system, and an incredible amount of order. And when he opened his eyes, he had no pain in his feet after that moment. Now, within 2 hours, we were out there doing a walking meditation, and he went from his wheelchair to 2 crutches on the beach there, and sat out there, got in his heart, remembered that if he could feel the emotions of his future before it happened, his body would believe it's living in a different environment, a different reality. And this guy had nothing else to do. Nothing else was working, so he went all in. And then I see him out there the next day, Mark, and he's standing there with one crutch, with his hands, locked in over his crutch. And I'm just looking at him. The wind's blowing in his hair, and he's just, as you could just tell, this guy is hooked up. And there's 1,500 people on the beach, and he's right in front of me. And I swear, you can ask anybody at this event. I turned around, and this guy was running down the beach. And the volunteer that, because with people with crutches or wheelchairs or handicapped, that we have volunteers. The volunteer is running after him. And then I see him run back, and there's no volunteer. He just dusted him. And he said he had connected to something so incredible, so big, that he felt like he was, literally born again. And to this day, he runs now. He has no pain. He has no depression. He has no suicidal tendencies.
Amazing.
I mean, he's in a new body. He's in a new life. Amazing. He's in a whole new future. And so you see those, and you just can't go back to business as usual. You just can't be the same person again. And then we do a lot of healings also on other people now, because in fact, we have universities now that are studying what we're doing, because our effects are so incredibly dramatic. And so we do a lot of coherence healings on other people, and again, studying the effects. We had random event generators in our last event measuring if we were creating huge fluctuations in the field. Of course, they were so obvious. I just looked at the data yesterday. And I love people to see it. I want people to see it. And if a person is part of someone else's coherence healing, I want them to know that they healed that person. I want them to know how powerful they are. And I don't care what they eat, what they believe in. I don't care where they're from, the color of their skin, how in shape, out of shape they are. I've talked to all of them. Nobody is excluded. That's all incredible. Forms and walks of life are doing this collectively, and it's becoming a new consciousness. And what I mean by that is, what I'm saying is, Consciousness is awareness. The moment you become aware of possibilities that you were unaware of, now they exist. And that means that other people can step into those footprints, not just as a possibility, but witnessing the possibility in front of them is truth. Because the person who's standing on the stage, who's talking about how their stage 4 cancer went into remission and there's no metastasis in any bone PET scan, and you can see the before and after, I'm looking at the audience and everybody is leaning in. You know why? Because they're looking at truth. They're staring truth right in the face, and they can't deny it. And that person isn't telling a glamorous story. They're going to tell you the real facts of what happened to them, and it's going to be relatable. And so we have really compelling evidence in our scientific studies, and we have really compelling evidence in our testimonies of students in this work. And
incredible.
Evidence is the loudest voice, and that's what's going to make a difference.
That's so great, Joe. This is such good work, and I'm just so proud of you for doing it and bringing this to everybody. I know it's hard to schlep around and do all this work, but you're in service, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. And I can't wait to go to your next workshop.
Mark,
I can tell you,
you're invited. You're invited.
Okay. Well,
now you don't have an excuse.
No, I don't. I have the time. And I actually just was cluing into my own self-awareness and my own level of well-being and my own suffering or negative thoughts. And I've been going through some stuff lately that's been challenging. And just having this conversation with you, I feel totally transformed. And I'm like, wow, okay, well, I'm going in for the week. If I can get this in an hour. So you talk about the 4 supervillains in your book that stand in the way of learning and how actually to overcome them.
Yes, and this is digital deluge is one, digital distraction is another. I would say the third one is this thing called digital dementia, which you just mentioned. Digital dementia, where, how many phone numbers did we know growing up? We knew all of them, right? But how many phone numbers do you know now?
That's true.
And it's hard. And people listening, you're like, well, I don't want to memorize 500 phone numbers. And honestly, either do I. But we've lost the ability to remember one.
I mean, even directions. I mean, you'd have to find your way through a map. You'd figure out where you're going. And then you would actually memorize the route.
Right.
And I just was in New Zealand visiting my wife, and I like to play tennis every day. So I was playing tennis every day. And I had my Google Maps. I would stick it up. And I went to the same place every day, but I actually needed the map because I wasn't really paying attention except to the map. And I easily could have found my way around. It wasn't that many turns, but I didn't really care to pay attention. And it does have an effect because unless you use it, you lose it.
And exactly, because our brains act more like a muscle, than anything. It's use it or lose it. If I put my arm in a sling for a year, it wouldn't grow stronger. It wouldn't even stay the same. Right? It would atrophy. And a lot of our brains, digital dementia is where we're outsourcing our brains to our smart devices. It's keeping our calendars, our to-dos. It's telling us how to get from here to there. They're not getting early. I heard recently that we're not getting early detection of brain aging challenges. And one of the reasons why is GPS. Like if you're relying on technology to take you from here to there, you're not realizing when you would have a memory lapse. So you're not going to get checked out and get looked at. And so these are the challenges, digital dementia. And I'm not saying...
And by the way, in terms of medical research on actual dementia, people who use their brains get less dementia. People who are learning and lifelong learners, who read, who do mental puzzles, who do brain learning exercises, who follow the work that you do, don't get dementia at the same rate as everybody else.
And it can stave it off because it's just, what it is, it's not just about mental intelligence. In this book, I show you how to learn languages, how to be able to focus, how to read faster, and remember facts, figures, all that information. But it's also about mental fitness and mental health. And then that's a conversation that I'm glad that we're having, because more and more people, because our brains control everything. Right, you write whole books on brain health and optimizing our brain's potential. So digital dementia is a challenge that wasn't there previous generations, and the last one I would say is this thing called digital deduction, meaning that Now with technology, and again, technology is not good or bad, and in a lot of ways it serves us. It helps us to be able to connect. It helps us to be able to learn, to be able to inspire, to be able to educate ourselves. But digital deduction is where technology is just doing all the thinking for us. We no longer have to use critical thinking or use our own reasoning or using our own analysis, because everything is being spoon-fed to us. Everything is like, this is what you should be buying or reading or anything. It's all these algorithms that are there. And so in this book, to overcome those 4 super challenges, those that we have, and I think through challenges could come change and positive progress, where sometimes, in the hero's journey, and this book is written in the hero's journey as an homage to Joseph Campbell's work, where there's a call to adventure and we leave the ordinary world that we're in to this more extraordinary world, and we face trials and we find mentors and you learn techniques and strategies, and then you come home and then you bring that back, in the return with this magical treasure of elixir, because I believe the life we live are the lessons that we teach. But it starts with the brain, and you and I have had this conversation where, metaphorically, our brain is like a computer. You have the hardware, which is, you want to optimize that, because more people upgrade their phones than they upgrade their brain. You need stress management, you need to sleep, you need to be around your positive peer groups, because as you've mentioned, it's not just your biological networks or your neurological networks, it's our social networks, because who we spend time with is who you become. Which is why it's so important to really do an audit around the people that you give them the power over how you feel and how you think, because you have these things called mirror neurons, where we're always imitating the things that are around us. When you watch a movie or you watch sports, you could feel what the players or the actors are feeling, because that's how we learn things. And whoever we're spending time with on a regular basis.
That's why I watch tennis a lot, so I can get better to beat you.
Through osmosis. Because we're always adapting and adopting the language patterns of people around us, the habits, the routines, the behaviors. They say who you spend time with is who you become. That be careful. If you're spending time with 9 broke people, you're going to be number 10, right? But all these things play a role, and especially, the thing that you're on a mission for is food, because what you eat matters, especially for your gray matter. So that's all on the hardware part. And what a lot of the book is about is really the software of it, and how to be able to read faster, how to be able to pick up another language, how to memorize poetry, or that TED talk or that toast you have to give at the wedding, or to give a sales presentation, or how to have laser focus so you could get through your to-do list. All the things that we've really honed over the past 3 decades.
I mean, that all sounds fun. People are like, well, so why should I care about speed reading or do my to-do list? But it is a bigger framework here, because everything that happens in our life is a result of how we grow. And how we grow is connected to how we learn.
Right.
And learning literally physically changes our brain. It changes our intellect. It changes the possibilities we have in our life. And there's an old Chinese proverb that says, learning is a treasure that will follow its owner everywhere. What we learn becomes part of who we are, and the tools that we can access them are so important, and you teach those tools. I read an article in the New York Times recently about, Jewish community and why there's so many Nobel Prize winners and scientists and leaders in society. And part of the reason is that we were persecuted. We were slaves. We were chased around the world. There was the Inquisition in Europe. We were chased out of Europe, chased out of Russia. And so the only thing that we had was knowledge. No one can take that away from you. Yeah. It's portable. It's in your head. And it's why Jews have focused on that. And I remember my mother, the drumbeat was education, learning. Why? Ask why, learn. And I think that's really what your gift is to humanity, is reawakening people's enthusiasm to grow and learn, because the result is possibility, is advancement in your life, is being able to actually have deep and connected relationships and do the things you want.
An investment in knowledge pays the most dividends, especially in today's age where we live in the millennium of the mind. Nobody who's listening to this is paid for purely their physical strength. Right, it's our mental strength, our ability to solve problems, our ability to be creative, our ability to imagine new things. It's not our muscle power, it's our mind power. And really, the faster you can learn, the faster you can earn. Not just financially, that's obvious, but all the treasures of our life.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the episode. Before we continue, we have a quick message from Dr. Mark Hyman about his new company, Pharmacy, and their first product, the 10-Day Reset.
Hey, it's Dr. Hyman. Do you have FLC? What's FLC? It's when you feel like crap. It's a problem that so many people suffer from and often have no idea that it's not normal or that you can fix it. I mean, you know the feeling. It's when you're super sluggish, your digestion's off, you can't think clearly, or you have brain fog, or you just feel run down. Can you relate? I know most people can. But the real question is, what the heck do we do about it? Well, I hate to break the news, but there's no magic bullet. FLC isn't caused by one single thing, so there's not one single solution. However, there is a systems-based approach, a way to tackle the multiple root factors that contribute to FLC, and I call that system the 10-Day Reset. The 10-Day Reset combines food, key lifestyle habits, and targeted supplements to address FLC straight on. It's a protocol that I've used with thousands of my community members to help them get their health back on track. It's not a magic bullet. It's not a quick fix. It's a system that works. If you want to learn more and get your health back on track, click on the button below or visit getpharmacy.com. That's getpharmacy with an F, Pharmacy.com.
Now back to this week's episode.
The reason why I'm so excited about this conversation is because let's say to the person who's listening to this right now, if there was a genie could grant you any one wish, just one wish, what would you wish for? You would wish for millions of wishes, right? Infinite wishes. That would be the hack, if you will. Well, if I was your learning genie.
But in Latin, genie says you can't wish for more wishes. So.
Right. But if I was your learning genie and I could grant you any one wish to learn any subject or any skill, but just one, what would the equivalent be for asking for infinite wishes? What would, in that same spirit, it would be, I would want to learn how to learn. Because if you can learn how to learn, everything gets easier. You could grant all your own wishes, right? It could be Mandarin, martial arts, music, marketing, management, anything that you're excited about.
Memorize the entire stock market.
Exactly. Anything that would be able to serve you better. It's a meta skill. They call it meta learning. Learn the science of learning how to learn. And that really, I believe, is that if knowledge is power, learning is our superpower. And it's a superpower we all have. So in this book, Limitless, it used to be, when I wrote this, a book purely on methods, all the things that I was telling you about, on how to remember people's names, on how to give speeches without using notes, on how to remember facts and figures, and to advance your career.
Why haven't I hired you yet to work with me?
Right. But what I realized was,
I think Jim's my friend. I'm like, oh, but I didn't forget.
we need to do this. So one of the things is people know what to do, but they don't always do what they know, right? And this is the reason I wrote this book, is because just knowing something is not enough. I believe one of the lies, and I talk about all the lies in this book around learning, like 7 lies specifically that keep us from moving forward. And one of the lies is that knowledge is power. People believe, we've heard this so long ago, that knowledge is power. I even said it just a few minutes ago, right? But it's if you think about it, it's not really true. Knowledge alone is not power. Knowledge applied becomes power. Knowledge is potential power, but when you use it, it becomes power. And so here's the thing. All the books and podcasts, online courses, conferences, none of it works unless we work. And I've always been curious, what's the difference that makes the difference? What's the difference that takes the common sense things that you know we should do? Eating whole organic foods, meditating each day, journaling, having, emotional bonds and social connections, exercising. We know what to do, but we don't always do what we know because common sense is not common practice. So after I had all these...
Mark Twain said, the problem with common sense it's not too common.
And that's the truth. So this book was all techniques. And then I was like, this is great. And I'll keep these here because it'll help people to advance their careers and do everything better. But then I was like, what keeps people from doing these things? And I created, over the past 3 decades, a model that I call the Limitless model. that really explains how to learn and achieve anything faster. And it's, if everyone could picture a Venn diagram, right? 3 circles that intersect, right? So you have 3 circles that intersect, and there are 3 M's. And this is the key to be limitless. Usually if there's a gap between where you are and where you want to be, let's say it's your current reality and you have this desired reality for your health or in your relationship or in your career, whatever area it happens to be, if you're not making positive progress towards it. And that's how I define limitless. I do not define limitless as being perfect. I don't believe in perfection. Limitless is not about being perfect. It's about advancing beyond what you believe is possible. I believe the ultimate quest that we're all on is to be able to realize, reveal our fullest potential. You know, that's what I think we're here to do. And I think I believe it starts with learning, because learning is the grandfather of all transformation. You know, you can't do anything unless you learn it first, right? So 3 M's, and if you're not achieving or making progress towards your goal, usually there's a constraint, and it's usually unconscious, a constraint in one of these 3 areas or more. So I want everyone to think about the first circle. The first M is the M of mindset. Now, I define mindset as these assumptions and attitudes we have about the world and ourselves. So what would fall under mindset is what you believe you deserve, what you believe you are capable of, what you believe is possible, right? Now, you could have that positive mindset, this growth mindset that you hear Dr. Carol Dweck talk about, right? Versus a fixed mindset. Now, that alone is not going to get you your goals and your dreams, just having an empowering mindset. You need the second M, and the second M is motivation. Now, when I say the word motivation, it's a little bit loaded, because some people believe motivation is, they associate it to being hyped up, getting excited for a couple of minutes, you know, while they're at that seminar, jumping to music, right? Yeah. And it's kind of like that metaphor of a warm bath. It's nice in the moment, and yes, I'm going to journal every day. I'm going to do Pilates 3 times a week. I'm going to eat the best food ever. And in the moment, you feel like that's the case, but then it cools down. I'm not defining motivation like that. For me, motivation is having a purpose. And I'm not talking about a life purpose. I'm talking about having a reason. So for example, I was talking to an entrepreneur, Tom Bilyeu, and he wakes up every morning at 4 something, and he works out at 5 a.m. And I was like, do you enjoy this every single day? He's like, no, I hate working out. And because some people feel like that if they're motivated about something, inherently means you find joy in it. And I haven't found that to be the case. Like occasionally I do these ice baths or these cold showers to lower inflammation. It helps me reset my nervous system. I have a video online that has 10 million plus shares just on my morning routine. I hate the cold. Like I despise the cold. I grew up in the Northeast here, and it's not for me. And I've done it for years, and I still don't find joy in it. But I still do it, and I'm motivated to do it every single day because I have a reason. So for me, motivation has a 3-step formula. Motivation for me is not about being hyped up and excited for the moment. It's about reason, right? Purpose.
What's your reason?
Yeah, having a clear reason and purpose times energy times small, simple steps. Now, let me just break this down for everybody. I want you to think about something that you want to be motivated for, where the opposite in the book is procrastination. I teach people how to smash procrastination. But think about something you want to be motivated to do, something you know you should do, but you're still not doing it. Now, first, the reason is, like, for example, remembering names. A lot of people do not remember names, not because they're not capable of remembering names, because the truth is, if I was to ask your audience right now who has challenges remembering names, 99% of them will say, if they're honest, I do. I'm bad at remembering names. Yeah. And then I will say, okay, well, let's say Mark has a suitcase of $1 million cash for you. If you just remember the name of the next stranger you meet, who's going to remember that person's name for $1 million cash, tax-free, for your favorite charity? Everybody. So all of a sudden, your whole audience is full of memory experts now. So it's actually a lie, or, you know, and these are the lies we tell ourselves. I'm not good at remembering names.
We have to be present to it.
Exactly. And you need a reason, because here's the thing. Not everybody remembers everyone's name, but we certainly don't forget everyone's name either. And if you reverse engineer it, you'll find that there's a method behind what looks like magic. You didn't just happen to remember the person's name. There was a motivation. There was a motive for taking action. There was a purpose.
But you've got special tricks. Like, how do you remember 100 people in an audience?
Well, even here, and we'll go through the methods, even here, a simple trick would be asking yourself, why do I want to remember the person's name? Because a lot of people's names you remember are people you're attracted to, people who could be good for your brand or your business, right? There's an inherent motivation. And so when you're meeting somebody and you want to remember their name, ask yourself, why do I want to remember the person's name? Because write this down, as I know a lot of people are taking notes, reasons reap results. If you do not have a reason to do something, you will not do it. Reasons reap rewards. And so the first part is, like, a lot of people, they can't get themselves to read. They want to read a book a week. You know, we know if the average person reads 2 or 3 books a year, but a book a week, 52 books a year, that will transform your life. But a lot of people can't get themselves to read 10, 15, 20 minutes a day because they're not associating themselves to the reason. But let's say they do have a clear reason. The second part of the formula, besides having a purpose, is energy. What keeps people from, and this is never really talked about in books, because you'll get books on mindset, you'll have books on motivation, but a key element to motivation, your motive for taking action, like the proof that you're motivated is your acting, right? And so what I'm thinking about is energy. Some people could have a clear reason to read, to work out, but they have no energy. Like they didn't sleep the night before, right? Or they're super stressed. So they lack the vitality to do that action. And that's keeping them from doing those sales calls or taking that road trip or to do the things that they need to be able to do. And so you need to look at energy. So in here, I talk about 10 ways of jumpstarting your mental vitality, right? Which includes maximizing your sleep, stress management, and I quote you in there also a lot about the brain foods. Because as we talked about on your show, what you eat matters, especially for your gray matter, right? And then once you're motivated, see, my question is always critical thinking. I'm thinking, okay, is the person, if I'm programming this robot, for example, if it has a reason, is it going to do it? Not necessarily. It needs energy. Okay, so let's say it has a reason and energy. Is it motivated yet? The one thing I could think of that it won't take action on is because the thing that they're thinking about is too big. Meaning that you think about, I want to start a business. Like, how do you, like, that's not a task or a step, right? So the third part are small, simple steps, because this is motivation for me is about, time management. This is energy management. Having a clear purpose gives you energy and clarity, because something that's not clear takes away energy. Having energy, an energized brain gives you energy. And then finally, small, simple steps require very little energy. They require very little effort. So my thing with getting people to really make functional change, like to put down this food and pick up this junk, pick up in this food, is to break it down into small, simple step. Meaning that instead of thinking your goal is to have the perfect relationship or the perfect body, how do you break it down into the smallest step where you cannot fail? It's like this it's sort of
like the BJ Fogg framework, right?
Exactly. So in here, we talk about reverse engineering your habits. And I take Dr. BJ Fogg, who heads the behavior lab at Stanford University, and he talks about tiny habits. He's saying, hey, flossing your teeth, we all know it's good for your longevity.
Floss one tooth. Right?
Floss one tooth. Same thing with reading. If you want to read a book a week, don't focus on that 45 minutes a day that it takes to read a book, or if you learn speed reading, do it 15 minutes a day. Hey, read one sentence. Because nobody's going to stop after one sentence. It's not like, I got to do this 1 hour soul cycle. It's like, I got to get myself out the door.
Well, I did it because I hated like weightlifting and push-ups and all that stuff. I love to run and bike and tennis and all that. And I decided, okay, I want to start doing more strength stuff. So I'm going to start with push-ups. Right. I can do that. I'm like, well, I really can barely do 10 push-ups, but I'm going to start. And I realized, what do I need? Well, I'm motivated. I have a reason. I'm aging. I want to age well. I'm motivated.
You have energy.
And I have the energy. So I realized I shower pretty much every day.
Okay.
And I turn the shower on. It takes like a few minutes to warm up. So I do push-ups before I warm up. So the trigger is turning the shower on, and then I do my push-ups. And I went from 10 to 50 push-ups.
That's amazing.
Just by these little steps, and it works.
And here's the thing. It's really, if you're persistent, you could achieve it. but if you're consistent, you could keep it. I believe consistency compounds, that little by little, a little becomes a lot. And that's how you create a transformation in an individual or in a culture. Like the movement that you have with Food Fix, it's these little things that add up to big things, over time. So that's motivation.
And the third part.
And then the third circle on here, once you have the mindset and the motivation, are you getting the result? Not necessarily. What's the one thing that's missing? The third M, which is the method, right? The methodology. You need to know, how to do it. So with the mindset is the what, the motivation is the why, your reason, and then the methods are the how. Now, here's the thing. This is where the magic comes in. I want everyone to think about something they want to be more limitless about, meaning progress, make progress, make some advancements that are measurable. Where mindset in this Venn diagram crosses over with motivation, that's where you have something I call inspiration. And because I alliterate everything, 3 M's, here are your 3 I's. So mindset crosses over with motivation, you have inspiration. And there are books on mindset and there are books on motivation, right? And there are books on inspiration or social media posts or speakers or something. That's inspiration. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to have the result, because what are you missing? You're missing the methods, right? Now, if you have the motivation and the methods, then you have the second I where that crosses over, you have implementation. But the problem is you're doing it, right? You're motivated and you know what to do, but the ceiling in your results is your mindset, what you feel like you deserve, what you feel like you're capable of, because all behavior is going to be belief driven. If your mindset is, I have a horrible memory, you can be motivated and know what to do, and you still won't remember, because the behavior will be limited by the belief.
So show me the money. What are the methods?
And then so in the book we show people how to unravel these negative beliefs that hold them back. Now finally, where mindset crosses over with methods, that's where you have this is where you have ideation. So you have inspiration, you have implementation, and then you have ideation. You have the right mindset. You have this winner growth mindset. Anything is possible. I deserve it all. And you have the methods, right? But you're not motivated. So it just stays as an idea. This is ideation, where people just analysis paralysis, think about all these different things. Where all 3 of these intersect, where mindset, motivation, and methods intersect, where inspiration, implementation, and ideation intersect, is the 4th I, which is integration. Because ultimately, real transformation is a full integration. And that sweet spot where all 3 connect is that limitless state. And that's really, I believe this limitless model is an explanatory schema for anyone, for themselves, their team, their family, if there's a gap between where they are and where they want to be. This book is about redrawing the borders and boundaries of what we have.
So give us some practical tips. How do you, for example, read 25 to 50% faster, remember names or numbers or bullet points? And how do you what are those methods?
Let's do it. So going to
I want to get a free consult here.
No. Let's do an actual. We'll do an actual coaching here. So the book is broken down into 3 sections. So it's actually 3 books in one. Where we go through and dissect mindset, and we talk about the limiting beliefs that hold us back and the truth, right? Because we talk about these 7 lies, and lie for me is it's a limited idea entertained. It's not the truth. It's an idea that we give energy to, that we entertain, that we picked up. Because here's the thing, when it comes to this, because I'm going to talk about speed reading, some people, I could teach them the method, but they could believe they're stupid, or they could believe they're a slow reader, or they could believe they are a procrastinator, and they won't do the method. So we debunk these lies because they're really BS. Right? Their belief systems, right? So assuming people have the right mindset and they're motivated to read, because some people, you can teach them what to do, they still won't do it because they know they could do it, but they don't feel it, like the benefits of what it'd be like. Like for me, an example I share in the book is the reason I'm here today is because when I was 18 years old and I learned these skills, my life transformed, and I couldn't help but help other people, and I started to teach this. And one of my very first students, she was a freshman, she read 30 books in 30 days. Honest to God, 30 books, not skim or scan, she read.
Wow.
And I wanted to find out not how. I didn't want to know the method. I taught her the method. I want to know what her motivation was, because most people who learned that same method did not do the same thing.
That, right.
And I found out, I wanted to ask her, how do you find out someone's motivation? You ask them why. Why were you doing this? And I found out, I always get choked up thinking about this. Her mother was dying of terminal cancer. Doctors gave her just 2 more months to live. And the books she was reading were books like that you write, books to save her mom's life, books on health, wellness, alternative medicine, energy, everything. And I was like, I wish you luck, prayers, and I don't talk to her for months. 6 months later, I had a call from this young lady, and she's crying, and she's crying. And when she stops, I find out they're tears of joy, that her mother not only survived, but is really getting better. Doctors don't know how, they don't know why. The doctors called it a miracle, but her mother attributed 100% to the great advice she got from her daughter, who learned it from all these books. And I get goosebumps.
Yeah, I got the chills when you talked about it.
I call them truth bumps, but I feel like that
truth bumps. Yeah, that's good.
That's when I realized that if knowledge is power, then learning is our superpower, and it's a power we all have. We just weren't taught in this world. But I illustrate this saying that I'll teach right now. I'll share with you some great tips on how to read faster. But you have to believe it's possible, and you need a reason to do so. Be just like going to the gym. You don't have to enjoy it, and I feel like you'll enjoy it once you get good at it. For example, a lot of people do not read because they're not good at it. And if somebody wasn't good at tennis, it wouldn't be a very enjoyable process. Like I'm not very great at golf. So I really don't find a lot of joy in playing golf because it is a struggle, right? Yeah. And so, but if I was great at it, like Tiger Woods or whoever, then I would be wanting to play all the time. It's fun because your confidence is looped together. So that being the case, find your why to read. Now, to read a book a week.
Yeah, tell us how.
Yeah, so this is the key. Having just written the book, the average book on Amazon has about 64,000 words, the average one, right? Now I know yours are larger, but 64,000 words. Now the average person reads about 200 words per minute. Now if you divide those two numbers together, it takes about 320 minutes to get through one book. All right, that sounds like a lot, but break it down into 7 days in a week. That's about 45 minutes a day. So that means 45 minutes of reading a day. You could split it up, 20 minutes in the morning, 25 in the afternoon. You could get through one book a week, 52 books a year. That would transform you. I mean, what books would you read over the course of a year? That's like having a PhD in any category. You think about what you would study in terms of entrepreneurship or wellness or anything else like that. Now that's 45 minutes a day. Now, if you read, we graduate people, we have students in 195 countries. They triple their reading speed on average. That means 15 minutes a day will get you through a book a week. Amazing. So how do you do that?
With the same level of comprehension and
with memory? It better. So it's so insane because
traditional. I got a lot of books on my shelf over there.
Yeah,
I'm dying to get through them.
So here's the thing, and that doesn't even take time because that's a mindset issue. Here's the thing, because I filter everything through these 3 M's, and so when you're coaching your patients or somebody who's listening to this, their spouse or their teammates, whenever they're talking, you could see where the constraint is. Is it in a belief or is it in a motivation?
So what's the technique to go from
So this is how you do it.
45 to 15 minutes.
This is how you do it. The faster readers tend to have better comprehension in actuality. That's the truth. So if we're going to unravel these myths, faster readers tend to have better comprehension. And I know this because we have students in 195 countries, so we have a lot of data, right? And I've worked with kids with learning difficulties to seniors. And so genius leaves clues. One of the keys are, what keeps us from reading faster, I'll tell you. Number one, lack of education. Right, we're not born with the ability to read. We learned it, but the last time we took a class called reading, how old were you? Yeah, exactly. You were 7 years old, and so everything has changed since then. But we're still reading the same way, right? So that's the challenge. So this is the education part. The second reason why is lack of focus. Some people will not read faster because they lack the focus. They'll read a page in a book, get to the end, and then just forget what they just read, and then go back and reread it. Now, but when reading is done well, it doesn't take time. It actually makes you time. Because if I could double everyone's reading speed, and I'll show you how right now, if I could double your reading speed, that means what takes an hour only takes 30 minutes. Yeah. The average person has about 4 hours of reading a day. Like think about it. Like think about the text messages, the emails, the magazines, the journals, everything you need to keep to process information. By the way, the reason why we do so much corporate training at Google and GE and WordPress, SpaceX, all these things is because if the average workday is being spent 4 hours a day processing information, that means half of their salary is being paid just to read. That means if someone's being paid $50,000, they're being paid $25,000 just to do something so ubiquitous like reading. And they're reading like they read when they were 7 years old. Right. So here's the thing. If you could just double your reading speed instead of 4 hours.
So how do you do it?
In 2 hours.
How do you do it?
I'm going into the motivation so people will do it because the strategy is really easy. 2 hours a day if you save it 2 hours a day over the course of a year.
You're not going to tell us you're going to make us by the butt.
No. I'm going to share with you. But the reason why I do this is because it's not, I'll tell you what it is, and most people won't do it until they realize they could save 2 hours a day over the course of, even if they save 1 hour a day over the course of a year, is 365 hours. That is 9 40-hour work weeks. You get back 2 months of productivity. So I want that to be your why. What would you do with 2 extra months a year?
So every company
that?
Should send all their employees to go to do the training.
Right. But everyone listening should make this a priority when I'm about to teach you the method, because the motivation is there. What would you do with an extra hour a day or an extra 2 months a year? Most people kill themselves to get an extra 2 weeks of vacation time a year, right? So that's the why. Now, the technique is very simple. The faster you read, the faster readers have the better focus. The reason why, when you read slow, you're feeding the super brain one word at time. Metaphorically, we starving our brain. And if you don't give your brain the stimulus it needs, it'll seek entertainment elsewhere in the form of distraction, right? And that's why you distract yourself. And it's like driving. If you're going 20 miles an hour in your neighborhood, you're not really focused on it. What are you doing? You're doing you're drinking your coffee, or you're texting, which you know you shouldn't. You're having conversations, you're thinking about the dry cleaning because you're going slow. That's like reading. Most people are reading too slow.
You're going 100 miles an hour, you're darn focused.
Exactly. If you're racing cars, taking hairpin turns, you're only focused on two things: the act of driving and what's in front of you. And you're not thinking about the dry cleaning. You're not trying to text. You're not trying to check your makeup. You're doing just those things. That's why, just like with reading, when people are reading faster, they're just focused on the act of reading and what's in front of them, right? And I'm dispelling these mindset beliefs because if I don't dispel them, people will think like, oh, I'm not going to read faster. I'm not going to understand what I'm going to read. And if I don't tap motivation, they're not going to do the method. But here is the method. One more obstacle that we're going to fix with the method: subvocalization. Subvocalization is this act of saying the words as you read, right? You notice that when you read to yourself, you hear that inner voice inside your head. Hopefully it's your own voice. It's not like somebody else's voice. The reason why it's a challenge is if you have to say all the words in order to understand them, you can only read as fast as you could speak. That means your reading speed is limited to your talking speed, not your thinking speed. I bet you a lot of people are listening to this show right now at 1.5 or 2x, right? Because they can understand it at that much, but they can't talk that fast. And here's the question of mindset belief. Do you have to say the words in order to understand them? The truth is you don't. Any more than you say comma, question mark. You don't do those things. You don't have to say a lot of words: the, there, and, because. They're filler words. 95% of the words you see are words you've seen before. You don't have to pronounce them. So the fastest readers don't pronounce all the words. And then finally, the last obstacle that we'll fix right now is regression. A lot of people are slow readers because they unconsciously reread words. Have you ever read like a line and found yourself rereading the line again or going back? It actually 25-50% of our time, sometimes unconsciously upwards of, can be spent rereading words, and it's very taxing for the eyes. Because in speed reading, there are these things called fixations. A fixation is a fancy word for an eye stop. When you're reading a word, your eyes fixate on the word and then the next word and the next word. And there are about 10 words per line in the average book. So it's making 10 stops. Now, the equivalent would be for kids when they're reading, they're very slow readers, first learning how to read. They don't see words, they see letters. And they're looking at each individual letter, sounding them out. So they're making like 40 stops going through the line. That's why it takes them so long to read. Now, the equivalent of how kids read that make 40 stops to adults reading, 10 stops, speed readers actually make 3, maybe 2, 3, or 4 stops, right? Because they see groups of words like adults, normal readers see groups of letters. So
Yeah.
they're seeing 3 chunks at a time. So their eyes only have to stop 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And that's the equivalent of driving in traffic, having to make 10 stops over instead of just 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That other persons get there a lot faster. So the goal
Wow.
here to read faster, one of the ways of teaching yourself to read in groups and to subvocalize less, now this is the method part, is by using a visual pacer. Now this is so simple. When people read using a visual pacer, it could be
Like a pointer?
a pen, a highlighter, a mouse on a computer, your finger, a pencil. When you underline the words, not skip anything, because I bet in your traditional speed reading class,
skip words.
you skip words, or you go down the page, or you make fancy S or Z forms, but you miss big gaps.
Yeah.
That's why you get the gist of what you read. So traditional speed reading, people,
getting the gist.
it's not for comprehension, it's skimming.
Yeah, that's what I learned.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't want your doctor to get the gist of what he's reading, right? That wouldn't make any sense. And so for me, what we've tested is if you just underline the words, don't skip anything, and test yourself. Don't
Not with an actual pen, but just with
yeah, you're not actually inking it up or anything. If you're reading on a screen, you're not touching the screen or touching the paper. You're just underlining the words, and then test yourself. Read for 60 seconds without using a visual pacer. Count the number of lines you just read. Then set your timer to read 60 seconds using your finger while you read, and count the number of lines you just read. That second number will be a 25-50% lift across the board. And now if you practice it more, it'll get even better. But here's the reason why. And I tell the why to increase your motivation, because some people are like, oh, that's nice, but you don't understand why, so adults won't do it. Number 1, kids do it.
Yeah,
all
it's
children,
true.
all
It's
children,
true.
when if you didn't teach them to do otherwise, they'll use their finger to help them to read because it helps their focus.
It's true.
Second of all, you do it. And you're thinking, I don't use my finger when I read. But if I asked you to count the number of lines you just read, 100% of the people watching, listening will use their finger and use it as a pacer. 1, 2, 3, 4, or a pen. 1, 2, 3. Because the third reason why is because your eyes are attracted to motion. Like if somebody ran past the cameras here, nobody would look at us because your eyes are hardwired as a hunter-gatherer, your survival. You have to look at what moves the most in your environment because it could be a threat. You're a hunter-gatherer in a bush, you're hunting lunch, a rabbit or carrot, whatever your viewers eat. If the bush next to you moves, you have to look because number 1, it could be lunch, or number 2, you could be lunch. So you have to look at what moves, or your eyes are hardwired to look at what moves. So when you're underlining the words, your eyes are being pulled through the information as opposed to your attention being distracted and pulled out.
Yeah.
And then the final reason you use your fingers while you read is because it's how your neurology is set up, your nervous system, your senses. Like, have you ever tasted a great piece of fruit, like from the farmer's market? Not something that's been waxed and sprayed.
A wild strawberry.
Yeah, something like right off the vine. Have you ever tasted a great tasting peach? In actuality, you're not tasting the peach. Your tongue is not capable of tasting what a peach tastes like. It's actually smelling the peach. But your sense of smell and your sense of taste are so closely linked that your mind can't perceive the difference. It can perceive the difference when you're sick, because when you can't breathe out of your nose,
you can't taste stuff. Right?
Food tastes what? Bland.
Right.
But that's because your sense of smell and taste are so closely linked. Just as your sense of smell and taste are linked, so is your sense of sight and your sense of touch. That literally when people underline the words as they read, people will tell me all the time, I don't know what it is, I feel more in touch with my reading. In fact, if you go to a toddler and say, look at my keys, look at my keys, look at my keys, the child will what? Reach out and grab and touch, because in order for him or her to feel like they're seeing it, they have to touch it. It's equivalent
so
of
powerful,
if somebody is blind. Another example, if they can't see, how do they read?
Right.
With their sense of touch.
So your book is full of these practical tips. And it's the whole Megillah, from mindset to motivation to method, breaking it all down and helping people become really limitless. And I always try to push against my limitations, but I think I forced my way. And this is sort of like a way to shift that and actually make it easier. And I'm just so glad you wrote this book. You have so many great things in there. You talk about a not-to-do list. You have an incredible 10-day quick start challenge, which I think people are going to love. So it's about how, but it's also exactly the specifics of how to get it done, which is what I love about it. And I'm like, actually, I don't get excited about a lot of stuff. And I've known you for a long time and I know your work. And it's one of those things I'm like thinking it's a nice to do someday. And I'm like, when can I get started on this? Because I'm really jazzed. Because I my life is all about learning, and it's all about understanding, and I feel like if I can accelerate that and read a book a week, it's the best news I've heard all
I'm saying
week.
we show up differently when we have that level of confidence. When you could walk into a room, meet 20 strangers, and leave saying goodbye to every single one of them by name.
Yeah.
You show up different. There's, especially in business, the number one business etiquette networking skill is just remember someone's name. Because how are you going to show someone you're going to care for their health, their wealth, their finances, their family, if you don't care enough just to remember them? And so you're very
great.
proud of.
So great, Jim. Hey YouTube, if you like this video, you're going to love the next one. Click on it to check it out today.
Getting quality, sufficient sleep on a regular basis is without question the foundation of mental and probably physical health as well.
You
already knew.
No, I know, but maybe people listening, this is so huge. This is such a huge idea.
So sleep.
You are your own master chemist. Did you know that Buddhists have been studying the art and science of happiness for thousands of years? They were probably one of the first to talk about that you are your own master chemist. Buddha once said that when you get angry, you are drinking your own poison. In the last 30 years, Western scientists are on board with this. They know that over 1,500 stress hormones gets released into the body. Recently, I finished the book, You Are Your Own Master Chemist. From the YouTube video, I learned that my book was in alignment with the Buddhists. Buddha was probably the best psychologist ever known. Granted, he did not call himself that. Yet they mapped out the states of mind that the Western world was trying to catch up on. Just think, it was only in the 1980s did Western scientists study the science of happiness. The East is thousands of years ahead of us when it comes to studying the mind. Lama Glenn mentioned there are probably thousands of chemicals that exist that Western scientists does not know about. Only in a heightened state of awareness do these chemicals get produced by the brain. Remember, your state of awareness determines your state of mind and body. If you are constantly stressed out, one has no clue about the mind-body connection.
Your body is your drugstore. The art of Taoism has been around for thousands of years. I find it quite fascinating that they talk about the elixir of life. This elixir is not an herb or any external substance. This elixir exists inside of us. In India, they talk about the nectar from God that flows within. Yet here we are taking drugs for our ailments. Each drug has a huge side effect. Now, I'm not saying don't take drugs. I'm saying maybe there is a better way. For example, in China, you pay your doctor when you are healthy. You don't pay when you are sick. Mind you, in modern China, this isn't always the case. But the point is that you focus on balance and harmony. In our culture, everything is fragmented. We don't focus on the harmony of the mind, body, and soul connection. When I was young, I heard about the concept of being in harmony with the universe. To be quite frank, I had no idea what they were talking about. Here's an example of being out of balance. In my junior year, my parents took our family to Yosemite. It's probably one of the most incredible places on the planet. Yet, I couldn't see the forest from the trees. I was miserable. Why? Because I missed the ocean. Now, that's being out of balance. Before we can begin to be in harmony with the universe, let's try to be in harmony with the planet Earth. Currently, man has divorced himself from our precious Earth. We pride ourselves with the technology that we have, yet we are totally emotionally immature with the Earth. Where am I going with this? Imagine if man was in absolute harmony with the Earth. Can you imagine the wisdom that it has? It might tell you that your body is your drugstore. Every thought, whether positive or negative, secretes over 1,500 positive or negative chemicals. Currently, most of America is totally out of balance. Look at the problems today. I used to work for the USDA. I saw my friends taking up vaping. I couldn't believe how much smoke came out when they exhaled. It was at least 5 times the smoke from regular smoking. No wonder there is such an epidemic. Imagine there are drugs existing inside of you that are dormant. In order to receive them, you must be in balance and harmony. In each and every moment, we have the opportunity to be conscious and aware. Currently, we are playing the same tapes over and over again. I can guarantee you that these elixirs of life work better than any physical drugs. Your body has the intelligence to produce these for you. How many people listen to their bodies? How many people monitor their thoughts? How many people dive into silence? How many people monitor their actions? You see, there is a moment-by-moment conscious event. When we are unconscious, chaos exists. Look at the world around you. Does it seem to be in balance and harmony? The question is, do you want to change? Are you content with the current conditions? This isn't just Richard on a soapbox. I'm asking real questions. What do you think? You are your savior. Nobody's going to save you except yourself. All the scriptures point the way, but we must walk on this path. This human body is hardwired to find God within. We are on this incredible journey to discover our true nature. We are out of balance, and yet we can learn how to be in balance. These are exciting times. Millions of people are waking up. Play with your chemistry kit. We are all playing with our own chemistry kits. Unfortunately, we aren't aware of it. Many people blow themselves up without realizing it. In each and every moment, thousands of chemicals are being released throughout your human body. Mankind is spinning out of control. We are drinking our own poison. We get angry at someone or a political point of view. In the meantime, we drink our angry poison. We then wonder why illness arrives on our doorsteps. The wise man understands the repercussions of negative thoughts and emotions. Moment by moment, one plays this video game of life with awareness. One taps into the infinite ocean of love and compassion. This is our true home. My advice is learn how to change your own chemistry. Remember, you are the master chemist. Only you are playing with your chemistry kit. Ponder this over. This could make your life so much easier.
Nerve cells that fire together, wire together. These are called neural networks. The brain fires more electrical charges than all the cell phone calls in a day. That is a lot of activity going on. I would have loved to see the brain scan of a Buddha or Christ. Just think how incredible that would be. Years ago, I heard the Dalai Lama would research in his mind all the activities of his day. He would see in the mind's eyes areas where he could be more kinder and wiser in his actions. And at that time, I couldn't relate to it. Well, I sure do now. He was consciously reprogramming his neural networks and his subconscious mind. He didn't have to think about being kind. He trained his subconscious mind day in and day out to be kind. I once read where he said he had a major anger problem as a child. Yet today, it's hard to believe. There's no kinder man on the planet. This is a practical path. What kind of neural networks are you creating in your life? If you don't want to answer that question, then you are like a leaf blowing in the wind. Your subconscious mind is running your show. Nobody gets a free ride. Nobody changes until you change your energy. Nobody changes until you change your energy. We still live in the Newtonian world, we still are only conscious of the external world of matter. Therefore, we only see 1% of the light spectrum. You could say as human beings, we are extremely dense. For over a century, scientists have been studying the quantum field. Mystics have been studying this for thousands of years. They knew once you change your energy, you change. The mind is like a tuning fork. It vibrates at whatever frequency it touches. When the mind touches silence, it becomes silence. This is our true state of mind. In the East, our present state is called monkey mind. If you don't know what it means, do the following. Sit down, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. Just do that simple thing. You will see that the mind jumps from one branch to another. You can't stop it. I have a friend who gave up trying to meditate because he couldn't control his mind. To conquer your mind is the most difficult thing to do in the universe. Your body is your subconscious mind. The East has always known there is no demarcation point between the mind and body. Western scientists know that the subconscious mind exists inside of the body. Imagine that 95% of our actions come from our subconscious mind. That means only around 5% is conscious. Our bodies are trained to respond even faster than our conscious minds. It is built in that way. Yet, we are unaware of this fact. Consequently, our reactions stem from past events. It's like a computer going to a specific track and playing it over and over again. We respond to past events and we think it's a new one. We do this day in and day out. Over time, we put deeper grooves into their record of life. We build attitudes towards others. We mock people and flame others and think it's perfectly okay. We are intolerant of others. The list goes on and on. If we want to change this world, we must change ourselves. Nobody can do it for you. God will not do it for you. That's why it's called free will. Are we headed in the right direction? Personally, I think we have three directions that we perform in each and every moment. One is to take a baby step forward towards your goal. Two is to be on a constant treadmill and go nowhere. Three is to progress backwards. The Jains, Buddhists, and the ancient yogis all talked about this. The Jains and the ancient yogis have the same identical systems. I would imagine the Tibetan Buddhists would have something similar or identical to the ancient yogis. Their system was started in India. Note how similar both are. One needs to embrace the tree of life to progress on this path. The 8 Buddhist practice the Noble Eightfold Path are: right view. Our actions have consequences. Death is not the end, and our actions and beliefs have consequences after death. The Buddha followed and taught a successful path out of this world and the other world, heaven and underworld, hell. Later on, right view came to explicitly include karma and rebirth and the importance of the Four Noble Truths when insight becomes central to Buddhist soteriology. Right resolve or intention, the giving up of home and adopting the life of a religious mendicant in order to follow the truth. This concept aims at peaceful renunciation into an environment of non-sensuality, non-ill will, to loving kindness, away from cruelty to compassion. Such an environment aids contemplation of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Right speech, no lying, no rude language, no telling one person what another says about him to cause discord or harm the relationship. Right conduct or action, no killing or injuring, no taking what is not given, no sexual acts, no material desires. Right livelihood, beg to feed, only possessing what is essential to sustain life. Right effort, preventing the arisings of unwholesome states and generating wholesome states. The 7 factors of awakening. This includes guarding the sense doors, restraint of the sense faculties. Right mindfulness, retention, being mindful of the Dharma teachings that are beneficial to the Buddhist path. In the Vipassana movement, sati is interpreted as bare attention, never be absent-minded, being conscious of what one is doing. This encourages the awareness of the impermanence of body, feeling, and mind, as well as to experience the 5 aggregates, the 5 hindrances, the 4 true realities, and 7 factors of awakening. Right samadhi, practicing 4 stages of dhyana meditation, which includes samadhi power in the 2nd stage and reinforces the development of the bodhidharma, complementing into equanimity and mindfulness. In the Theravada tradition and the Vipassana movement, this is interpreted as ekaggata, concentration of one's pointedness of the mind, and supplemented with vipassana meditation, which aims at insight. 8 limbs on the tree of life. This journey of self-discovery is infinite. It's like peeling an onion. There are infinite layers to this onion. A person can never clap your hands and say, "I've mastered it all." Our whole sense of understanding the world around us has been changed. The journey is going from a reactive state to a proactive state, going from the hurricane state of the mind to absolute silence. This takes time and patience. You see, darkness is the flip side of the coin of light. You can walk into a room when it's dark, flip on the switch, and the lights will turn on. In the same manner, you can walk into a room where there is light, and then turn off the lights, and darkness will occur. Darkness is simply the absence of light. In both examples, you decide whether darkness or light will manifest in the room. The same goes for your life. Most of us are unconscious, therefore we don't make proper decisions. We live on automatic pilot. So we have our ups and downs in life. Nothing is stable. We spend our lives not wanting to change, even if it means for us to have miserable lives. We don't know that we can climb out of the hole that we have dug. This is the state of mind today. We don't ask questions about life. Even during the shutdown, when Mother Nature is sending us to our rooms, we aren't asking questions like why. We are so busy and bored to get back to our everyday life. The 8 limbs represents the tree of life and how we can be in harmony with it. Over time, one discovers one is a scientist, psychologist, dreamer, mystic, lover, and being practical. One learns to have the feet on the ground and your head in heaven. Patanjali set out his definition of yoga in the Yoga Sutras as having 8 limbs as follows. The 8 limbs of yoga are abstinence, observance, yoga postures, breath control, withdrawal of the senses, concentration, meditation, and samadhi, absorption. Imagine a doctor prescribing a program that will heal you in your body, mind, and soul. Note, the doctor does not heal you. You heal yourself. In the last 50 years, yoga has been mainstream in America. When I first started practicing yoga in 1971, we were considered a weirdo to practice yoga. Yoga posture is only one limb on the tree. This is a living tree. You are a living tree. So many benefits occur just by practicing yoga postures. People's health and state of mind have been drastically improved just by doing these. Note, practicing yoga postures is only one limb on the tree of life. We will talk about the various limbs in separate chapters. Behaviors to match the intention. If you have an intention to change, don't you think your behavior should match your intention? You will never change if your behaviors don't change. One could go to church every Sunday and give an offering. Yet, if during the week you don't practice what you preach, life is an infinite series of modifying our behaviors. There will never be a moment when we clap our hands and say, I've learned all there is. If you ever say this, boy, do you have a grand lesson to learn. I can almost guarantee you life will throw you a curveball. The greater the intention, the greater one must modify his behaviors. One can't live one's life on autopilot. A proactive being is constantly modifying one's behavior for the better. You can't rest on your laurels. Every moment, we can always improve. How does that make you feel? A spiritual path is a practical path. One learns that in each and every moment, we can modify our behaviors for the better. We will stumble and fall, yet we will pick ourselves up and continue walking. We can smile through diversity. We can not have a care in the world. Your behaviors become your personality. Change your behaviors and you change your personality. Victim of your environment. I've said many times before, the spiritual path is the most practical path. What do I mean by this? We are all victims of our environment. We are like leaves blowing in the wind. When the environment is good, we are happy. When the environment changes, we become frustrated. Externally, everything changes. Nothing remains the same. Consequently, our happiness goes up and down. We try to hold on to our happiness for dear life. Consequently, we experience tremendous pain. Life will never go totally the way you want it. One may see the glass as half empty or half full. A wise man learns that inner happiness exists inside of him. Therefore, the world may change, yet one resides in the ocean of happiness inside. This has been known for thousands of years, yet it falls upon deaf ears. Isn't that ironic? What we've been searching for exists inside of each one of us. I find that sad at times. You are the universe. You just don't know it. Modify our behaviors, reprogram the mind. Just think, if you modify our behaviors, you reprogram the mind. What a difference that would make. It's not easy, yet it can be done. Just start slow. You will stumble and fall. That's part of life. Don't get hard on yourself. pretend it's a game, because it is. Your life will change significantly when you do this. Your happiness is not dependent upon others. You can't blame anyone for your problems. There is a way out of this rabbit hole. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. No, it's not another freight train barreling your way. One who smiles at life is truly content. One has nothing to say or prove. You don't have to defend your position or try to convince anyone. The truth needs no convincing. Have you ever thought if I just changed just one bad behavior, it would make my life easier? Simplicity is the key. Just look at a newborn baby drifting off to sleep. Nothing is more joyful watching that sweet smile appearing. This is your natural state.
I once had a grand teacher who said, meditation is perfect concentration upon a perfect point. How elegantly said. Imagine the mind is like a tuning fork. Whatever it touches, it vibrates at that frequency. Have you ever felt that material happiness is finite? Imagine the car you've always dreamed of, a yellow Ferrari. In the beginning, it brings you so much joy. You take all your friends around the block for a spin. Day and night, you are satisfied. One day, you notice that a little dissatisfaction has entered your door. Day by day, your yellow Ferrari becomes a hassle. How many times to the shop? I need an oil change. My brakes need changing. The transmission just went out. Everything material wears out. Material happiness will soon lead to pain. Does this mean we can't enjoy the comforts of life? Do we have to live a life of a hermit? How can we live in this world and live in absolute joy? Meditation brings the individual to the center of the hurricane. The winds of change are blowing, yet perfect calm resides inside. This is your true state. Absolute joy, total bliss. Your mind is vibrating with the word of life.
Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. The story of Oppenheimer's infamous quote. The line from the Hindu sacred text Bhagavad Gita has come to define Robert Oppenheimer, but its meaning is more complex than many realize. As he witnessed the first detonation of a nuclear weapon on July 16, 1945, a piece of Hindu scripture ran through the mind of Robert Oppenheimer. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. It is perhaps the most well-known line from the Bhagavad Gita, but also the most understood. Oppenheimer died at the age of 62 in Princeton, New Jersey, on February 18, 1967. As wartime head of the Los Alamos Laboratory, the birthplace of the Manhattan Project, he is rightly seen as the father of the atomic bomb. We knew the world would not be the same he later recalled. A few people laughed, a few people cried, most people were silent. Oppenheimer watched the fireball of the Trinity nuclear test turn to Hinduism. While he never became a Hindu in the devotional sense, Oppenheimer found it a useful philosophy to structure his life around. He was obviously very attached to this philosophy, says Reverend Dr. Stephen Thompson, who holds a PhD in Sanskrit grammar and is currently reading a DHP at Oxford University on other aspects of the language and Hindu faith. Oppenheimer's interest in Hinduism was more about than a soundbite. It was a way of making sense of his actions. The Bhagavad Gita is a 700-verse Hindu scripture written in Sanskrit that centers on a dialogue between a great warrior prince called Arjuna and his charioteer, Lord Krishna, an incarnation of Vishnu. Facing an opposing army containing his family and friends and relatives, Arjuna is torn. But Krishna teaches him about a higher philosophy that will enable him to carry out his duties as a warrior, irrespective of his personal concerns. This is known as the Dharma, or holy duty. It is one of the 4 key lessons of the Bhagavad Gita: desire or lust, wealth, the desire for righteousness or dharma, and the final state of total liberation or moksha. Seeking his counsel, Arjuna asks Krishna to reveal his universal form. Krishna obliges, and in verse 12 of the Gita he manifests as a sublime, terrifying being of many mouths and eyes. It is this moment that entered Oppenheimer's mind in July 1945. If the radiance of 1,000 suns were to burst at once into the sky, that would be like the splendor of the Mighty One, was Oppenheimer's translation of that moment in the desert of New Mexico. In Hinduism, which has a non-linear concept of time, the great God is not only involved in the creation, but also the dissolution. In verse 32, Krishna speaks the line brought to global attention by Oppenheimer. The quotation, "Now I have become deaf, the destroyer of words," is literally the world-destroying time, explains Thompson, adding that Oppenheimer's Sanskrit teacher chose to translate world-destroying time as death, a common interpretation. Its meaning is simple, irrespective of what Arjuna does. Everything is in the hands of the divine. Arjuna is a soldier. He has a duty to fight. Krishna, not Arjuna, will determine who lives and who dies, and Arjuna should neither mourn nor rejoice over what fate has in store, but should be sublimely unattached to such results, says Thompson. And ultimately, the most important thing is he should be devoted to Krishna. His faith will save Arjuna's soul. But Oppenheimer seemingly was never able to achieve this peace, in some sort of cruel sense, which no vulgarity, no humor, no overstatements can quite extinguish, he said 2 years after the Trinity explosion. The physicists have known sin, and this is a knowledge which they cannot lose. He doesn't seem to believe that the soul is eternal, whereas Arjuna does, says Thompson. The 4th argument in the Gita is really that death is an illusion, that we are not born and we don't die. That's the philosophy, really, that there's only one consciousness and that the whole of creation is a wonderful play. Oppenheimer, it can be inferred, never believed that the people killed in Hiroshima and Nagasaki would not suffer. While he carried out his work dutifully, he could never accept that this could liberate him from the cycle of life and death. In stark contrast, Arjuna realizes his error and decides to join the battle. Krishna is saying, you have to simply do your duty as a warrior, says Thompson. If you were a priest, you wouldn't have to do this, but you are a warrior, and you have to perform it. In the larger scheme of things, presumably, the bomb represented the path of the battle against the forces of evil, which was epitized by the forces of fascism. For Arjuna, it may have been comparatively easy to be indifferent to war, because he believed the souls of his opponents would live on regardlessly. But Oppenheimer felt the consequences of the atomic bomb acutely. He hadn't gotten that confidence that the entire destruction ultimately was an illusion, says Thompson's. Oppenheimer's apparent inability to accept the idea of an immortal soul would always weigh heavily on his mind. James Temperton is a news editor at Wired.
Oh, now, Oh, we supposedly started today. Our job we start, beginning. And better slow down. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Supposedly, I have to teach you this time. It's called the sixth yoga of Narupa. Anyway, I'm not sure myself. So therefore always delay. Okay. And also this sixth yoga of Narupa historically come from the Shakyamuni Buddha, and then slowly to Narupa, and then also many Marba, many maybe Milarepa, and many lineage Lama. And each of those lamas have also written down their experience, commentary on the sixth yoga of subject of sixth yoga of Narupa. And then this time, what I'm receiving myself is from the Lama Tsongkhapa. The text explaining sixth yoga of Narupa. I guess this is already isn't it? Translated into English by something. Yogi-chen. Chang-chen, something like. All right. So, so if I'm going far away, there's book, If I'm not making sense, you just check out. At least, okay? Okay. All right. Also, myself receiving this from my guru, almost 2-3 times. Also, even though I'm not a successful meditator, I try. At least I try. Okay. So therefore, you know, I mean well, isn't it? At least. Oh, okay. That's all I can say, all historical point of view is the Naropa, great Mahasiddhi, Naropa is well, educated, monk, what is it? Ancient, the Nalanda monastery in India, and he learned everything, all the subject of Sudra and Tantrayana. He learned everything, all the intellectually. But then he was sort of famous, distinguished one, in the monastery. Maybe many people give attention to him, but in his mind, he's not so happy, He don't think he is a great man. Even though he's like computer, he can tell everything, everything, He can debate, he can remove all, self-criticism. Yeah. However, somehow he dissatisfied, Then one day, I guess, he told his dissatisfaction of whatever is, some of his guru. Then his guru give this, mantra, or what is it? What we doing almost here? Ha ha hum hum pe. And he did that one, his mantra he did. Quite bitter. Then after some time while he doing, suddenly from the space, making sound that you are still a baby, long way to go. Your knowledge is just intellectual is not enough, and in order to fulfill the total satisfaction, there was some guru such place called something Teluva or something like that, So, he thought, maybe that is something special for him to research, So he left the monastery, and then he met Teluva. Teluva is looks like, immoral man, sitting somewhere, eating fish, something like that. Something. Anyway, it not looks like great yogi, I think if you saw, maybe Teluva, who want this man to listen, he's impure, immoral, maybe you see that way. Something like that. However, Naropa saw, Oh, oh, Jalaba. Ah. Also, you know, Naruba is, he was trouble, you know, great, you know, something 12 or something trouble, you know. You remember that in the history, you know. Each time he have to do outrageous action for his guru, you know. And when the Majid struggle, not receiving really what he wished, you know, Mahasiddhi, you know, realization or initiation or empowerment, not receiving so long, you know. So we went on. However, history, well, his history, I think, is very good for us. For us. Nowadays, all of us, we are, you know, 20th century. We have so much information. We have so much, you know, intellectual, you know, material we have. We all have, you know. We collect, you know. But, you know, very little sort of action and a very little, you know, success of the spiritual attainment, you know, highest destination. So this is a real, I feel, it's a very good example. You know, the Naruba was such a highly advanced, you know, and intellectual, you know, philosophically, you know, and ritual or both the tantra and the sutra. And still, he's a baby and not discovering satisfaction within himself. So he have to seek, you know, tantra master and struggle all these things. This is a good example for us. All right, now maybe, you know, maybe a little bit Tibetan style is, I have to read a little bit from the commentary, you know, all right. Zamanaro children, when Tibet, now, meaning of this, you know, the title is called, you know, what do you call? How you translate this one? Three. Yichi something means. This commentary has sort of, you know, characteristic. It's called Yichi something. Yichi something means you have confidence, you know, three characteristic way in this, you know, commentary. Three characteristic is maybe this way. You know, this description of meditation, clear. Maybe number one, maybe. And then second is very distinct, you know, distinct explanation, rather than like my mind all mixed up, you know. You understand? You know, I say something, then suddenly I want to, you know, flower, you know. You know what I mean? You know, I talk about something like talk about this, I want to hear, you know, not like mixed up. It's distinct, scientific, sort of clear manner. Second, and the third is the competence is Lama Chitungkapa, way explain. He not explain Dadada only. He explained Dadada because Narupa's code, because Delava code, because Marva code, you know, because Delaraba code, because, so he explained. He sort of, you know, or bring, what his statement is, how, those great, lineage gurus explanation link, communicate or no? He don't explain just blah blah blah, He explained this should be this way because Naropa said this way, Developer said this way, Milarepa said this way, and Marba says this way. So that he has incurable explanation how to prove it. You know what I mean? On subject, such a way. So that those who are searching research that becomes clear. All right. Okay. So the competence by the quoting various, what do you call it? Yeah, reference. Okay. All right. So name is too much, isn't it? Yes. All right. I guess. This you just listening, it's not important. You just listening, you pay attention, you don't pay attention, I don't mind. Just myself enjoy, All right, now, my enjoyment finished now. All right, now. Okay, now, now I tell you, some kind of, explanation from here. Sort of, the frame of this, explanation. It is important for us knowing some kind of frame, practicing. Or many, old students, they're listening so much Dharma teaching about 10 years. Then sometimes they say, well, now I'm confused, and I don't know where I start. From where I start, I received so much, teachings from, 100 lamas, and I don't know who is my teacher, and I don't know who is what is my meditation or something like that. Sometimes confused, okay? No, now, this is important, I think. Even though you study so much subject and you receive, hundreds of the meditation, technical meditation, and still you lost, that shows something's wrong, isn't it? Something's wrong. Now I tell you something. Something, beauty of the, Tibetan, Buddhism. We have clear structure from beginning up to end. We already clear, clear list we can show you how you can check out. That is, from my point of view, is appreciated. Is very much appreciated. So if you use your head wisdom, you'll be able to see. You'll be able to see. Okay. So knowing frame, structure is one important is you're not lost. Then also, since you claim you are meditative, since you claim you are Buddhist, now, the principle of Buddhism is concerned head, isn't it? Concerned brain, in other words, isn't it? So much concerned mind. Come on. So we concerned very much. The mind is the, the nuclear of all the samsara or nirvana, whatever it is. So all the trip, what we having in our life, all is the manifest from the mind. Remember. So we should have some extent, since we are getting Buddhist education, we should have some kind of awareness, what our need. At least you should know what is the lack of you, what you need. To some extent, you should know. I believe you. If you try to know, you will know. You understand? What did we talk about? human being is great, great. What makes we are great? You understand? We are great because we have nose, and we have mouth, Not that reason. We are the human being is great. When we want to see, we have inner wisdom, I tell you. Okay, I think I trust human being. Through the, number explanation, through the, Buddhist, teaching. To some extent, you know what you need. So, what you need, you take, you eat, isn't it? When you're hungry, isn't it? You know you're hungry, so you search food and eat, isn't it? When you thirst, then you know, something you to drink, to stop problem. It is similar, absolutely similar. That you feel some lack of dissatisfaction, and of course it can be growth, it can be growth, it can be subtle, but Buddhism way to solve problem is not try to solve subtle one, gross one. Try to solve. Remember those things. Material, explaining. So the gross problem, in order to solve it, what you really need, you know. If you won't know, if you really, you know. So the act to eat and take your level of meditation. Now, Lama Chitungapa telling here, Lama Chitungapa beginning telling, he lay out, the subject, subject here, he explaining, the preliminary, subject and main, body of subject. And the preliminary subject has at the common, Mahayana, preliminary, and the uncommon, particular Vajrayana, preliminary. Okay, Wanto. You heard already Wanto. Most people heard Wanto. Okay, a vocabulary word Wanto, Tibetan Wanto. Okay, and then the common, the Mahayana, the preliminary. Is the as lumbering, as lumbering. You remember lumbering explaining from the taking refuge and actualizing bodhicitta and knowing your value of life and Four Noble Truths and loving kindness and the 6 parameters. I know you remember those things. All those things are okay. The Mahayana common, preliminary meditation. Okay, meditation. Then when he lay out this one, he explained. Lama Chitungpa explained. It is not only his idea, Marba's idea. He referred to the Marba. All right. Then he referred to Milarepa. And then he referred to Gaboba. All right. He sort of and then he Kajuba, Pamujuba, Padu Kaju, also, besides Milarepa, You know, we have, Kajuba has many different, lineage. All these lamas, Kamutuba, Yangomba, everybody agree. There's no distinction. All right? Even Christian agree. In the way true, in the way true, Christian has, also renunciation, isn't it? Christian has, we have renunciation. Christian, we have refuge, I think it, we do, okay. So therefore, all same thing. All those are important, important. Many times, the sectarian comes, like, Giluba, think Kajuba is, not sure. Kajuba think, Giluba not sure. The Christian think, Buddhist people not sure. Buddhist people think, Christian is not sure, What each other. Not doing exactly business, you understand? Just, produce, superstition. The business is, what is it? Kajuba business, Giluba business, Christian business. All these people, business is, do good things, serving for others, develop yourself, isn't it? So business is give up, then talk about maybe he is, I don't know. Also waste of time. That's why Lama Jitongkapa. You understand? Lama Jitongkapa explained. Beginning is, he proved, those, Onyimaba Lamas, those Kajuba Lamas, those are the right. So he proved, to them. Okay. So the good, you people are as foreigners. And you should get, right, idea of Lama Jitongkapa. You understand? Like me, like Mickey Mouse, like me, I present, Lama Jitongkapa as Mickey Mouse, or as hungry ghost, maybe, So therefore, to know is important for you, okay? So yourself also not involving, ridiculous, waste of your time. We are consuming so much time and the money and the life, So we do, something meaningful, get something yourself, and that is more worthwhile than just, poisoning each other, negativity energy. It's not so worthwhile, okay? I think, I'm not making anything special, because Lama Jitongkapa telling here, is so important. All of us, significant. Okay. Oh, and then also remember, many, also different lamas. Also, they claim themselves as different, religion, and they try to make distinction such a way. Lama Jitongkapa said here, no different religion. Okay, Kajuba practicing, Marpa and Milarepa practicing, Gambupa practicing is the same thing as we do, and Kajuba, the Sunyata point of view, and the Giluba, this point of view is same thing. Here said. Now I'm talking about Lama Jitongkapa point of view. Okay. All right. You understand? And of course, some different rituals are definitely here. But then what different, you know? Different ritual does not make it, you know, real different, you know. It's like, you know, then all of you different, you know? All of us different, you know? Isn't it? We have big different proportion of nose, each of us, you know, each of us eye color different, you know. So we all different. If you consider some slight ritual different, making distinction, you know, but then I don't think that is the, you know, proven, you know, you and me different. Not sure. Not sure. Mm. Mm. Oh. Anyway, you know, I'm not worried about, you know, you people are, you know, really. Most often, I know, I trust you, not involving any of this kind of, you know, sectarian, you know, negative poisoning conversation and these things. You're not involved. I'm very happy. Okay. And I try, you know, also, according to my just of explanation, I try to make clear your view in the Pakistan. Oh.
Before meditations, I will teach you breathing, 6 yoga naropa, 9 breathing exercise.
Перед медитацией научу вас дыхательному
6 yoga naropa.
наропа.
You just watch.
Вы смотрите.
When you want to going to meditate, first you want to clean your body.
Прежде чем идти
That
заниматься
air.
медитацией, вы очистите свое тело от грязного дыхания, грязного воздуха.
Our body and our brains everywhere, that air, you know.
Во всем нашем теле есть грязный воздух.
That air, our negative concept makes our air so dead, then it is blocked and it is dirty there.
Даже негативные мысли делают внутри нас грязный, мертвый воздух.
Then Naropa teach to Marpa, 9 breathing exercise, how to go that air out.
Наропа учил Марпу, как делать эти дыхательные упражнения, чтобы очистить свое тело от этого грязного.
12th century yogi meditation. This is ignorance finger.
Это безымянный палец.
You do your first thumb, put here softly here, and do like this.
Потом пережимаете мягко в этих местах и делаете подобные движения.
Then you are like lotus, then you are doing in the lotus position, okay? If you can. Then you put first like this.
Кладите руки подобным образом.
And your body is like beginning at all 7 Bharachana positions. 7 positions. Then first you need to breathe very deeply, like.
Вам нужно дышать очень глубоко. Вначале вдохнули, выдохнули.
You breathe both nose until here. Then all air come out. Never one little. All coming out.
Сначала вдыхаете вниз живота, потом выдыхаете весь воздух.
Then first right hand you do like this, and this finger negative channel is going here, and softly you are here also block, not to go air, here also blocking, we are stopping.
С безымянного пальца вниз к локтю идет канал негативной энергии, вы блокируете и делаете подобное движение.
Then you are blocking here, then your right hand first, like do like this, and close your right finger to left nose completely like that, you know.
Правым пальцем вы закрываете левую ноздрю.
Breathe right nose very as you can.
И вдыхайте изо всех сил правой ноздрёй.
left hand. Then your hands first left, then right, Buddha Mitapa position.
Сначала правую, потом левую, позицию Будда Митапи.
Then your eye open, look the objects,
Открывайте глаза,
and
направляйте
keep
на
mind
объект
there.
и держите своим там.
When you breathing inside,
Когда
close your
вдыхаете,
right nose like that, open from the here, not go air. When you are breathing right nose, then visualize
во время дыхательных упражнений, когда вы закрываете левую ноздрю, вы визуализируете
the air, pure air, clean air. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, great Mahasiddhas, great yogis, Buddha medicine, blessing air. Yesterday as I talked, the air is pure medicine, you know. You're taking inside, spreading right channels, the right path, all chakra and opening your...
Ну, визуализируете,
Imagine.
как чистый воздух Будды, Бодхисаттвы, Махасидхи, все божественные существа. Я рассказывал на лекции, что воздух это чистое лекарство. Вы представляете, как вы это вдыхаете, и он распространяется по всей правой части вашего тела.
When you close right nose, changing like
Когда вы закрываете правую ноздрю
Like this.
и выдыхаете,
not coming here air, only going here out,
мгм,
then you visualize all our negative concept, our disease, our sickness, our bad dead air inside, going out, going out.
и вы визуализируете, как весь этот нечистый воздух, все ваши негативные мысли, представления, эмоции, ваши болезни и хвори, все это выходит из вас.
Then 3 times right finger and 3 times left finger at the right channel, left channel.
Правый канал,
Три.
левый канал 3 раза, правую ноздрю 3
Channels
раза,
and
левый,
chakras. Then 3 times both nose, inside 3 times, outside 3 times, the center channels clean.
И 3 раза обеими ноздрями
Then
вдыхаете,
body-
выдыхаете, чистите центральный канал.
Then body become like channels are become pure. Then it is connecting. Air is inside clean. Is connecting our mind to be balanced, to be in our objects. Then after the breathing exercise finished, then you put hand. Then you just focus and don't think any problem. Even
Closing.
somebody is bit more.
These are exciting
telling
times
something,
for the
forget
world,
about that.
We're
Nothing
at the
happens,
junction
already
point.
gone.
where we must decide where our
После
future
того, как вы
will go.
совершили очистительное
Will we
дыхание,
destroy
сосредоточились
ourselves,
на объекте,
or
никаких
will
мыслей,
we
никаких
discover
ожиданий,
our
никаких
true
представлений.
nature? It's up to us to decide. The concepts of the quantum are now being utilized in quantum computing. This is a step in the right direction. This is one step closer for us to discovering our true nature. If humanity at large discovers the inner jewel within them, we will change this world quite dramatically for the better. These are exciting times for us. These are exciting times for the world of this precious puzzle. We are at a junction point where we must decide where our future will go. Will we destroy ourselves, or will we discover our true nature? It's up to us to decide. The concepts of the quantum are now being utilized in quantum computing. This is a step in the right direction.
This is one step closer for us to discovering our true nature. If humanity at large discovers the inner jewel within them, we will change this world quite dramatically for the better. These are exciting times for us. You are a piece of this precious puzzle.